Let's do the damn thing.
Oh, you know what time it is. It's time to take it to the Birdland. It's about to go down. Hope y'all ready. Yeah, let's go. Come and roll with me to the Birdland. Friends got to giving you the word, man. Any other BS is absurd, man. Sports talking, they give it to you firsthand. They can talk Terps, they can talk O's. Yeah, they both lit. That's how it goes. Baltimore squad, Ravens and Poe. Better tune in. Here gonna show. Birdland, Birdland, Birdland. BS. Birdland, Birdland, Birdland. BS.
It's all about that BS, baby.
What's up, BSers?
What's up, peeps?
Fred, Scott, James, Drew in the house tonight. Full studio. As we thought we might have Ryan join us tonight.
He might still.
He still could show up at some point.
I see Kaylee in there. Maybe she can give us the inside scoop.
Yeah, right. We got a lot to talk about on this week's show, man. It's been a while since we've talked Terps on the show. Obviously, Shell and Tell's doing its thing on its own, but it's starting to get close. We're starting to get close to kickoff, so we got a lot to cover with the football team.
We have a lot to briefly unravel.
Exactly, man. But we're going to start this week with the Ravens as they start to make some room under the cap. What does that mean for the team? And does it mean anything with Lamar's pending extension? We'll get into that as well.
Yeah, and look, the Orioles are under the test right now as they play through some of the best in the AL East, and they kick off this second half so far. Not so bad. We're going to get into that a little bit later, too.
And as I said, man, we're going to talk some upcoming Terps football season and what does success look like in 2022 for the Terps. Coming off a big bowl win last year. They gotta improve year to year, and what does that look like this season?
Yeah, but before we get into all that, we want to send you over to the team at Bauer, Sasan, and Herndon again. Remember, it used to be MD Crash. They changed their name. They expanded. They got more lawyers. And again, they're handling a whole lot more cases than they were before, and a much broader spectrum of cases. So whether you still have those accidents or injuries at work, of course, they'll handle those for you. But they also can handle family law issues from divorce, custody, child support, even criminal cases, traffic tickets. And again, you decide to commit murder, or you decide to fire a firearm on the side of the road in Middle River.
Hey,
a little too soon. A little too soon. All right. Well, hopefully
too close to home.
Hopefully they aren't representing that guy. But if you need support and you need the team over at Bauer, Sasan, and Herndon to get on the case for you, 667-220-6500. Call or text them anytime. Again, that's the MD Crash number. You got to update it in your phone. 667-220-6500. Get the team at Bauer, Sasan, and Herndon on the case for you.
All right, fellas. Like I said, Ravens reported to training camp, so things are officially official.
Woohoo!
So the season's officially underway now.
That's because Lamar showed up a week early.
That's right. Yeah, amongst all the criticism, is he going to show up? Is he not going to show up? Well, not only did he show up, but he showed up early, as did most of the Ravens anyways.
Yeah, most of them did.
Couple of rookies, second-round pick David Ajabo did not report. Is now officially, I guess, classified as a quote-unquote holdout. As he's, like I said, one of the only rookies not to sign his contract yet, or the only rookie. And with this, I don't think it's any more than there's nothing. He's not going to be playing because of the injury, right? He's not going to be practicing because of the injury. So it's
no harm, no foul for either side at this point.
Right. There's no urgency for it to get done. And I know there's been obviously some holdups with second-round picks. Some of the second-round picks have been the latest to sign due to some issues with guaranteed money and all that. And I'm sure the Ravens are just playing it safe with Ajabo, a guy that's coming off an Achilles injury. And I'm sure his agent's trying to get every guaranteed dollar he possibly can. And that's probably a stalling point amongst, contract negotiations. But Ajabo, everything you've seen about this kid through all the social media posts and everything that he said, I mean, he seems to be excited to be a Raven. He seems to be excited to be teammates with Odafe. Like, I don't think it's anything to worry about from the Raven standpoint.
No, and I think honestly, whatever contract discussion is going on is probably in the Ravens' eyes semantics.
Right.
It's probably working through a few little things and kind of saying, okay, look, we're willing to do this, but we want to put an attachment on it because of the injury. Right. And he's probably saying, I'm going to come back fine, whatever it may be. whatever it is, they'll figure it out. That's what everybody needs to slow down about. They need to slow down about a few other things that we're going to get into, but they need to slow down about him not signing. Nobody expected him to play. Nobody expects him to be back from injury until next year.
Right.
And ultimately, when it comes down to it, this is a guy that if not for the injury, we're talking he was going in the first round.
Yeah, he was top 15 pick.
And so he, in his eyes, probably wants that type of money. The Ravens aren't going to give it to him.
No, nobody in the right mind would.
But hopefully, with the enthusiasm that he has, hopefully that plays into it, and it will work itself out. It's just a matter of at what level is it.
Yeah, the deal will get done. There's things that had to happen first before the deal gets done, and those things are starting to move now. The one person that didn't show up that kind of threw up a little bit of a flag to me, obviously, the other rookie, tight end Charlie Kohler, dealing with a possible sports hernia that came up last week, likely to delay his start for training camp. So that's a little bit of concern. Obviously, they did go 2 tight ends in this draft, with Isaiah Likely being the other one.
Not like you don't have a backlog.
Right, exactly. We do have a little bit of depth at the tight end position. We talked about it. There's going to be some tough decisions if all things are healthy at the tight end position as to who stays and who goes. But you never like to see a rookie get off to a rough start like that. But sports hernia is something that they can hopefully get under control. And surgery isn't too time consuming.
Well, and that's the thing. It all depends on what type of hernia that you're dealing with. I mean, I personally have had a lateral herniation in my lower back, and yeah, it took me out for a little bit. But with just a little bit of therapy over like a few months, it was all of a sudden I'm good. I'm ready to go. Like I can back to playing sports and all that. So it depends. It could have just been he felt a pinched nerve, and we're talking it could be a slight herniation. We don't know. We don't know all the details.
Yeah, no.
There's a lot of different things that could be going on here. So the fact that people are worried and go, oh, this is a wasted pick, slow the fuck down. Like, just slow the fuck down, please.
Right. Well, in relation to the Ajabo signing or lack thereof, right, part of the reason that deal hadn't gotten done yet was because the Ravens were surprisingly super tight against the cap.
Yeah.
I mean, super tight against the cap, and that's not traditional for the Ravens at this point in the year. So they had to create space, and they were able to do that, converting $8.965 of Marlon Humphrey's $10 million base salary into a signing bonus, which created a little over $7 million in salary cap space on Monday. And of course, as soon as that was announced, social media started going crazy. Oh, who are the Ravens going after? Who are we signing? What free agent are we bringing in? What's going to happen? Pump the brakes a little bit. That's not what this is about. The Ravens do need to sign Ajabo, so that's going to eat up part of it. The other portion is, too, the Ravens always like to go into a season with a $4 to $5 million cushion of salary cap. That insurance policy that if there is an injury and they need to bring in a free agent throughout the season, they've got the room to do that. I'm not saying it doesn't mean that there won't be a player that they're going to add. It's still possible because there are other deals that they could restructure the same way and create even more space. But I think this deal specifically is about the immediate, which is getting Ajabo done and giving them that peace of mind that they have a cushion.
So was the trade-off for restructuring Marlon's contract? That's why Steve Bisciotti was on the show.
Yeah, exactly. Right?
No, I think it's smart, and he's a Baltimore guy, or at least he seems to be a Baltimore guy, minus his comments about not realizing that the Ravens were named after Edgar Allan Poe. But he is invested, right? And so he's willing to do what it takes. He's going to get his money either way.
Yeah.
But he's willing to do what it takes to restructure and say, okay, yeah, I'll take it this way.
Signing bonus, he gets it in a nice chunk right up front.
Exactly. And so they can get that taken care of, and it opens up that cap space. It will be interesting to see what they do, right? Because with some of the news coming out this week, people are freaking out. Again, slow the fuck down. You see the theme here?
Yeah.
See where I'm going with this?
Pump the brakes. That should have been the show title.
Pump the brakes. Yeah, we don't even think about that. I think we've used that one before.
Probably.
We probably have.
Volume 5.
Yeah, right.
It's like 250 of these episodes. I think we're going to pass a couple.
I'm pretty sure we're going to have a duplicate title at some point.
Well, I think we did like Lamar season 2.0, and I think we're going to come up on 3.0 here soon.
Right.
But no, I think when you look at everything overall, the aspect of them going in with that 7.1 now, it gives you the ability to do a lot of different things. Ajabu's contract, I don't think is going to eat up a whole bunch of that.
No, but I mean, they were sitting at like $600,000 in cap space before this move.
Oh,
so
yeah.
They absolutely had to do that to be able to get that deal done.
No, and that's it's one of those things that the Ravens historically have always been able to do.
Yeah.
Which is, again, why people need to slow down, because to your point, I think you summed it up really well in saying that, like, this is what we do.
Yeah.
Every year we want to go in, and you go in with a buffer, because if something happens, middle of the season, you feel like you're one piece away, whatever it may be.
You lose 3/4 of your DBs. I mean, that's never happened
Hey,
before,
you
but
shut
whatever.
your mouth. You shut your mouth. Don't you put that juju on me.
Right.
No, but that's one of those things you got to kind of take a look at. And you know, the first thing that other people were jumping at on Twitter was the whole Lamar contract situation. And does this mean they're able to get something done? Was he wanting more money this year? He was going to get money this year.
Yeah.
The thing is this Lamar contract situation.
It's starting to make me a little nervous. I'll be honest with you. Like, I haven't been nervous through this entire thing.
Game just perked up.
Honestly, I really thought that this deal would get done before training camp started. And then when Lamar reported a week early, I thought that was a good sign. Even in the video, he had a little black book in his hand. I'm like, oh, cool. He's got like notes about his contracts. I don't know what it was. I just saw it in the video real quick, and I'm thinking, all right, he's there to do business and get a deal done. And the fact that a deal hasn't been announced yet, it's making me a little nervous. Doesn't mean I don't think a deal is going to get done. I still believe a deal gets done. But listen, you got contracts being signed left and right, and Lamar's playing this smart, man. As many people and we all in this room want to see the deal get done.
What you're getting paid, and I'll work on my own.
Yeah, exactly. And the more these guys get paid, the more guaranteed money Lamar's going to get. The average annual value of his contract just keeps going up and up and up. As obviously another chip falls to Kyler Murray and his new contract.
Yeah, his new contract, he gets that deal with the Cardinals done for 5 years, $230.5 million, but $160 million of that's guaranteed. And the kicker is the average year, right, is $46.1 million a year.
Yep.
That's one of the higher ones that we've seen next to Rodgers here lately.
Yeah.
So again, it's this guaranteed money. However, the thing about that one is it just goes to show you that the Browns piece with Watson and his contract didn't affect the rest of the market with fully guaranteed money.
Because just like I said before, the Browns are always going to Brown. Like, nobody bases their contract decisions off what the fucking Browns do. I mean, they're running like a shit show. So, like, nobody's basing that off of that.
Did you see the picture of the somebody posted on Twitter? It's like the Browns alternate helmet.
I did.
No.
It's literally a white helmet with the picture of the Browns helmet on it.
Oh, that's fucking hysterical. I love it. That's funny.
But yeah, no, obviously it's there's a lot of different factors that play into the Lamar contract situation, right? And we talk about the Kylers and the Watsons, but when you and I were kind of talking about this, you were kind of looking at this and saying this is really his contract is going to be crucial in the market.
Yeah. So right now he's at $46.1 million per year average annual value, right? Which puts him $100,000 more than Watson's contract per year. I think guaranteed money, where Lamar's going to land is somewhere between those two numbers, between Kyler Murray's and between Deshaun Watson. I don't think it'll eclipse Deshaun Watson. I don't think he'll get Deshaun Watson guaranteed money, but it'll fall somewhere in between that. So you can base, I think, an expectation somewhere in that line.
What's up, Don?
His average annual value, though, it is going to go up. And you start looking at, the guaranteed money of these contracts. You got Watson at $230 million, Murray at $160 million, Rodgers at $150.7, Josh Allen at $150 million per year. The only one of that group that's making $50 million a year is Aaron Rodgers, right? Yeah. Rodgers actually obviously has a great resume. He's won back-to-back MVPs. He's won a Super Bowl. He's got a good resume. So I don't know if he'll eclipse that $50 million mark average annual value, but he's got a good case for it, and he should be real close to it.
I think he's going to wind up being close. I think it comes down to what again, there's a lot of different things. Lamar's looking at this as a short-term and a long-term play, right?
Yeah.
He's got anybody that's smart and developing contracts. If you've done anything with contracts in your life, whether it's work or whatever, you got to play it smart. You're always going to play it to help yourself, but you're also playing the short-term and the long-term gain, right? So you want to be able to know that this team is going to be invested, but you want to make sure you get your money. Everybody knows that. Everybody wants it. Regardless of what anybody has said, He's always been about his money. We've said that a million times. So it comes down to what can they do. And the problem is all the noise that's starting to kind of really come out. One of the things that gets me, and I talked about it last week, right, it is the players that come out of nowhere, the Bart Scotts.
Anything Bart Scott says, take with a grain of fucking salt. You don't listen to anything.
His name's Bartholomew.
Yeah, Bartholomew,
Yeah, right?
Exactly.
But you get guys like him coming out, making the comments that they're making. Who was the other guy that we talked about last week? Former Raven. Help me out. Safety, strong safety.
Sure. Oh, fuck Bernard
Pollard.
Pollard.
Bernard Pollard. Yeah.
Pollard coming out and making his comments. The thing that I think is good is, despite all the detractors, you've got some people that'll come out and support him, especially former players. One of which we're going to play an audio clip here in a minute about that. But then it takes some real balls to do what some defensive coordinator did. I'll let you go off on this and get us started.
I don't think it was ballsy at all. He hid behind his words because it's an anonymous defensive coordinator.
Pussy.
If he put his name out there and stood behind his comment, yeah, I'd say that takes some balls, right? But, this guy goes out and says, I don't give a shit if he wins the league MVP 12 times. I don't think he'll ever be a 1 as a quarterback. He'll be a 1 as a football player, but not as a quarterback. And to be honest with you, Ryan Clark, I think, summed it up best exactly about how I feel with these remarks.
You mean Louis Riddick?
Louis
Riddick.
Oh,
but
yeah, Louis
Riddick. Ryan Clark has some really strong words.
Well,
Yeah.
Ryan Clark's made this statement of like the thing that gets him is that he gets the most crap for being one of the greatest players out there.
Yeah.
Right? He gets all these detractors, and he's still the greatest. If we're talking about any other quarterback that puts up the numbers that he does and supports the team the way that he does, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But there's something about Lamar, and to your point, Louis Riddick really summed it up really well.
This sounded like someone who has an axe to grind, who's someone who personally, again, feels as though no matter what Lamar does, he's just not going to change his opinion on him. And then you're trying to do it, as everyone on the panel has said, without ever being outed for it, meaning no one ever knows who it was who actually said it. And that is cowardly. That is, especially when you go this hard on someone and you say, I don't care what you do, you're never going to reach this certain level in my eyes. Look, I understand anonymity when it comes to reporting and sources and all that. And I've heard you guys all talk about that in the first hour. This seems over the top. No, it doesn't seem over the top. It is over the top. Well, this doesn't seem cowardly. It is cowardly. And this doesn't seem personal. It is personal.
And that's exactly how I feel about it. This seemed personal because, again, it basically what he said. It doesn't matter what you do. You'll never be held in that high of a regard as a quarterback. And that's bullshit. Because, how many people, what has Josh Allen done? Has he won a Super Bowl or anything yet? No, but he's held in high regard. And he's also a dual threat quarterback. It might look a little bit different, but he's still a dual threat quarterback. I understand that he might have some shortcomings as a passer to the naked eye, but you can't deny a guy who comes into an organization when they're struggling and when they're down, and as a rookie in the middle of a season, learning a whole new offense leads them to a playoffs. The next year comes back and is a league MVP.
Unanimous.
One of the only ones to ever be a unanimous MVP. To say he's not an elite, to say he's not in that tier 1 of quarterbacks is just ludicrous.
Yeah, Louis Riddick, I loved the way that he summed it up there right at the end, right? It doesn't seem cowardly, it is. Right. It doesn't seem personal, it is. And this, to that point, that's what's so frustrating is you get all these people that want to come out of the woodwork. I really think whoever published this article should take some crap, because it's not like you're getting an inside. This isn't like inside information.
Right.
If it's inside information, I 100% get anonymity. But when you're talking about this situation where somebody's making a comment, it just blows up. And so it got me thinking. It got me thinking about what this is. And this is someone, somewhere, trying to disrupt and put this black cloud over the Ravens even more.
Potentially.
From a business standpoint, I hate the situation. I hate this. From a business standpoint, remaining anonymous actually makes sense because then you don't know. They don't know who's the bulletin board material, right? So from a business standpoint, I get it. You're not going to say who's making this comment because you don't want somebody to have that bulletin board material, especially if it's a Browns defensive coordinator or a Pittsburgh defensive coordinator or somebody within division, which does make me think that that's the case. But it's one of those things that you slide the shadow, you push it over there to create the doubt, create the detractors, and get in the head and create a continued distraction. If you create a distraction in someone else's locker room, it only advantages you in most cases. But in this situation, I'm sorry, the anonymity is absolutely asinine. Whoever wrote this article should be held accountable by their editor as well. Because this is not insider. If you were talking insider information, that's one thing. This is somebody who's making a comment at someone, directed at them, and going, "Oh, I don't want to." That's the equivalent of us disguising our voice and making comments on the show as someone else, and then nobody knows who to go after.
Right.
No, own up to your shit. To your point,
exactly.
You're going to make the comment. Make the comment and have it.
The problem with this too is it's not an isolated incident. Like this is the most I guess direct comment that you've heard posted publicly, but there are a ton of people that feel this way about Lamar Jackson specifically for whatever reason.
This made headlines because they specifically said it's a defensive coordinator in the NFL right now.
I don't get what he's got to do. I mean, because again, after his rookie year, they said he'll never make it as a passer. He went out there and threw for 36 touchdowns the next year, threw for 4 or 5 interceptions, didn't have many interceptions that year. So he proved them all wrong. He said he couldn't win a playoff game. He went out there and he won a playoff game. Said he couldn't do any, could have fourth quarter comebacks. I don't know how many fourth quarter comebacks that he had last year before getting hurt. You think about the Chiefs game, you think about the Colts game. Like he's proven everything. Has he won a Super Bowl? No. How old is he? He's 25 years old. Right? And again, this organization, honestly,
still young as fuck.
This organization was in a bad place before he took over as a starter. They weren't at 500 when he took over. So single-handedly, he has taken this from a mediocre organization or mediocre team at the time and put them on his shoulders single-handedly. And you saw that clear last year. They were 8-3 despite all the injuries and everything that they had last year before he started having injury issues. Then they bring Tyler Huntley in. They didn't win a single game. So if that doesn't show you Lamar's value as a quarterback, as an overall player to this team, I don't know what does. I hate the fact, if you want to make the argument that he's not a top 10 or a tier 1 pocket passer, okay, we can have that discussion. But to say he's not a top tier 1 quarterback because he's not a fantastic pocket passer doesn't make sense. There's so much that goes into the quarterback position, and he does it maybe a little bit differently, maybe not the traditional way, but he's still a tier 1 elite level quarterback.
Not to mention, we talked about this before. What was trash last year? Our offensive line.
Right.
So we could have seen him throw for more. He could have been that pocket passer, but he didn't have time to do that. So what did he do? He did we called him out. We actually called him out at times last year for, dude, the hole was in front of you. But he couldn't be the pocket passer because the hole was there and he wasn't taking it. He was here in that pocket passer. He was trying to show you. He was trying to, but he should have actually ran through the hole. So the thing here is people need to... the quarterback has evolved. Period.
Right.
Understand it, respect it. We see this. Every sport is cyclical. We see this all the time. We see this rise, and then we see it go back. And we see it rise, we see it go back.
Look at what the San Francisco 49ers are doing right now. Moving on from a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo to a guy like Trey Lance, who was a Lamar-esque type player in college. Even though, right.
He had nowhere near the accolades that he had
exactly, but he's that dual threat quarterback that uses his legs quite a bit, right? And the 49ers are kind of doing this blindly because it's not like they have a large sample size of what Trey Lance looks like. Not to mention
part of what Jimmy G did. I mean, they moved on from a guy who helped get them into the playoffs.
Right.
So there's a lot of different people that are looking at this saying, this is a new model, right? The Arizona just paid Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray's not far off either.
Right. And you get all these, you get the old timers that say, well, if you look at history and you look at all the running quarterbacks and it never really worked, The game
History
of
is
football,
history.
the game of football has changed in the last 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. Defenses can't do what they once did back in the day. The way people tackle, the way penalties are thrown, the way games are refereed are totally different now than they were 10, 20 years ago. So to say that a running quarterback won't work in the NFL is stupid. It's mind-boggling.
All right, we got our thoughts on this. I want to throw it over to the guys. So, Drew, we'll start with you over there because I know James is kind of writing everybody down. So, Drew, what's your take on the whole Lamar contract situation and the situation regarding all these comments?
I mean, the contract situation, it's gotten frustrating for me, too. I'm with you. We've always been on the same side.
Just getting a little nervous, that's all.
It's just annoying. Like, I'm not worried. I kind of don't care still. He's going to play. And I believe in him. I believe in him as our quarterback as it is. The whole defensive coordinator thing, and like it can bring eye rolls, and I really don't care. I posted it on Twitter, so I don't mind bringing it up again. But like it comes down to, and I never thought this way like a year ago, but it is a race thing at this freaking point. Like, if he was white and doing the same things, would you be saying it? And like I said, you know what? And I go off a little bit because I don't care if this gets eye rolls from anybody, because it to me it is a race thing now. I got in the car. You'd have like the fan will turn over to like ESPN radio or something on the weekends or at night.
Right.
So, and I don't remember who the guy was doing the show, and I called in halfway. He was kind of like going over the Lamar contract thing with the Ravens, and he was, the Ravens don't want anything to do with signing him because he'll get to age 26 and hit a wall like Newton did.
Right.
And I'm like, well, wait a second. Okay, let's just say Cam Newton hit a wall at 26, 27, and he had all these really good accolades, but he threw his body around like it was a fucking weapon.
Exactly.
The same things that Josh Allen does, because we texted about it plenty of times when we watched during the season.
Yep.
Where you go, okay, that's cool when you sit here and you have 8 to 10 touchdowns rushing every year from the 2 or 3 yard line because you're running in the full-grown fucking linebackers. That's what Cam Newton did, and that's what Josh Allen is doing, and pretty much emulating what a Cam Newton always did.
Yeah.
But you don't get it because, you know what I mean?
You don't have to paint the picture any better, man. I totally get it. James, what's your take on the entire situation, the contract? I mean, I know you were kind of pessimistic to begin with, didn't think this deal would get done before training camp.
I don't think it's going to get done this year at all. And if anything, next year, I think they're going to franchise him. And it's just like what they said. Ravens isn't a team that gives a whole lot of guaranteed money up front.
Yeah, Bart Scott made that comment as well.
So you haven't seen it. I'm not disappointed. It's just mind-boggling because there's no medium say, hey, we offer this. He didn't reject that. You don't see any of that. It's just hush. It's like hush money.
Right.
And that's the annoying part because with everything you know, well, Joe came in. Let's say Joe Flacco came in and say he wants this amount. The Raven came back with that. You don't hear any of that. It's just we're just talking.
Right.
We're just talking. And that's the annoying part. And it's just sad, but right now, since training camp had just started today, I think more of this is going to go away with Lamar. But ESPN and everybody else doesn't have anything to talk about, and this will fill in the place of that dead space. But then when Murray got his deal done, so then here we go, put more gasoline on the fire. What's Lamar doing? So it's just smoke right now.
Again, I like I said, I think Lamar's playing his cards right. I mean, it's a little risky, obviously, not getting a deal done. But like you said, we haven't heard a lot of public comments as to how this back and forth is going because he doesn't have his representation. He is his representation, and he keeps it close to the vest. So we don't know how much back and forth. We don't know if the Ravens have put out an offer yet. We know that they're talking. That's all we know, right? So I think I still think a deal gets done before the start of the season. That's what I'm hopeful for. I do think a deal gets done before the season starts. But I think you're right with the guaranteed money thing. It's something that the Ravens haven't historically done because they like to protect themselves, and they're not a stupid organization like the Cleveland Browns. But they've never had a Lamar Jackson either, right? And Lamar Jackson, again, when we started talking about him when he was drafted, this was goes back to the hashtag Lamar effect. Lamar isn't just a franchise quarterback. He is a rock star of an athlete. athlete, right? He is one of those players that you put him in a big market like New York, you put him in LA, you put him in one of those marketable, you don't hear the end of Lamar in a positive way. He is in the limelight of everything in those big markets. That is the kind of player that he is. And I don't think the Ravens will ever risk losing it, but they're not going to go in blinded and say, here's an empty check, sign whatever you feel is fair. They're going to go through normal negotiations, and I think this is just part of the process.
I just want to say real quick is I think the Ravens are I don't know if they can do it, but like every so year give it guaranteed money up front or whatever to like say, hey, you know, we got 3 years out, you did this, here's some guaranteed money. Come towards the season, like sort of like what Marlon did, like bring more money up towards up front compared to backloading it.
Right.
But also, the Ravens are probably like looking at, and we all know Lamar's arm is strong, but not like accurate compared to like Aaron Rodgers or all.
That's
these,
fair.
All these other ones. Are they saying like, hey, if you get injured and the injuries you can still play, but not as great. Now you don't have the run game, so maybe they're just trying to. This is going to be a unique contract for anybody, unless they want to overpay.
And the other thing that I think you're not factoring into here, where none of us are really talking about it or factoring in, are the long-term effects of COVID as well. This is a guy who has publicly said he's not vaccinated. He's had COVID at least twice now. We don't know what that's going to look like in a year, 2 years, 5 years from now. Mm-hmm. And you're talking about something that affects the respiratory system, right? Something that if a guy is running around every other play, he's going to become short of breath.
If the man has to carry an oxygen tank around with him, there's a problem.
My point is that there are questions that the Ravens really don't have the answers to because there aren't answers out there yet. So, again, they just have to be extra cautious with this. I mean, look at what the freaking Cardinals just did with the stupid contract that they wrote for Kyler Murray. He's got to watch 4 hours of tape every single day, and if he doesn't, he violates his contract, and that takes away $100 million of guaranteed money. Like, there are ways to put things and language into contracts, and again, it's a sticky situation because he doesn't have that representation that understands all that lingo because it's himself. So these things that might normally take a couple weeks, couple months to get done might take a little bit longer because it's Lamar doing it himself.
Well, I think the other things you got to think about here, too, and you kind of alluded to this, right, is let's take a step back for a second to draft night. Not talking when he was drafted. Talking draft night this year. What was the big surprise that happened on draft night? It was Hollywood.
Yeah.
And we learned later, it was weeks in the making. Weeks in the making. What's going to happen, and what is everybody going to say when all of a sudden this contract gets done? Because they've been keeping everything hush-hush. That's the thing that I'm not worried about. You know, you were talking about the idea that, you know, usually you hear, oh, they've offered this much. Well, we've historically seen with the Ravens, they're pretty quiet. And now we've learned you got I'm not saying Hollywood was a high profile player, but for the Ravens, he kind of was.
Yeah.
And look how close to the vest they kept things. I could see them absolutely keeping all this hush-hush. Hey, Lamar, we got this contract done. When do you want to release it? When do you want to let everybody know?
I kind of thought the same thing, which is why I was kind of optimistic when I saw he showed up to camp early, because I thought, well, shit, they've got the deal ironed out. They're going to make some big media event about this thing, and it's going to be real cool, and everybody's going to be happy, and we're going to go into the season, you know, feeling good about ourselves. And when it didn't happen yet, that's when I started getting a little nervous, because, again, I had convinced myself that, like, that's why he's here. Like, why else is he here early? But that's just fucking Lamar. Like, Lamar doesn't do what you expect him to do. Most players, if they don't have that contract worked out, they're holding out. They're staying home until that contract is done. Lamar shows up. He puts in the work. He's here.
Right, and that's what I'm saying, though, is if week one or right at the end of the preseason, they come out and go, oh, yeah, we got the deal done. We're putting the pen to paper. This has been done for about 3 weeks. We're actually putting the pen to paper. He wanted to focus on his game, so we let him do that. And then we said, hey, end of preseason, come in last day. We'll sign the contract and put it out there and call it a day. This is quite possible that people need to recognize that scenario and the way that they've played everything close to the vest for the past 2-3 years now. EDC is a master at it, and we are learning that. And I think people need to harpen back, like I said, to draft night, because we were all surprised as fuck to learn that. And then we were all really surprised to go, how the hell did they keep that shit quiet?
Yeah. I mean, they're very good at it. They're one of the best organizations to do it. But
The guy that isn't going to be starting week 1 at center, so.
All right, so speaking of things that kind of put Ravens flock in a frenzy, the Ravens announced earlier over the weekend that 6 players went onto the PUP list. Obviously, this sent Flock Nation into a sense of panic. You had Ronnie Stanley on there coming off the ankle surgery for the second time. Marcus Peters, the ACL injury preseason of last year. J.K. Dobbins, the ACL injury preseason last year. Gus Edwards, the ACL injury at preseason last year. Tyus Bowser, he had the Achilles injury last game of the season. And our Darius Washington was on that. And, obviously you had the back and forth between JK and Ian Rappaport about, I'm not even going to be on the PUP list. I'm going to be ready week 1. What you talking about? Come at me when you need a source, right? And then this comes out and he's on the PUP list, right? Surprise, surprise. What I think you need to understand as a fan, because not everybody understands the PUP list and how the PUP list works, right, is there are 2 designations for the PUPs, and especially in the preseason, right? If you're on the PUP active list, you can be activated at any time. This doesn't mean that you're not going to be available week 1 and you got to wait for 6 weeks, or I think it's 4 weeks now. I think they redid the rule.
Yeah.
The PUP is now 4 weeks. None of that's a factor. So if the Ravens feel comfortable about JK during the preseason, they can take him off that PUP list whenever. If they feel comfortable about Gus Edwards, they can take him off that PUP list whenever. There's no harm, no foul in doing so. This just eliminates them from being able to practice until they're off that list.
And I think there was Sports Illustrated has done an article that they kind of do every year, and they adjust it as need be. But they put it out because obviously teams are starting to release. Here's the PUP list. And here's how they explain it. Players who start on the preseason on the PUP list may not practice until cleared by team medical personnel. They can attend team meetings and work out. Once cleared, they can return to the field. Guys, this simply could be something as simple as, hey, his next doctor's appointment isn't until next week. Right? Like, there's situations like this that can come up. Not saying that's the case here, but people need to remember this. They can come off this list at any time if they're on the active side. If a player practices during the camp, they're actually not eligible for PUP anymore, and the team... Oh,
Siri's going on a rant.
Siri's going on a rant now. But if that's the case, then they have to cut him and re-injure him or put him on the injured reserve. If a player finishes the preseason on the PUP list, they can be placed on the regular season PUP list, and players on this list cannot practice for the first 6 weeks of the season.
Right.
After the 6th week, the player's allowed to return to practice. So here's the deal. We're not in that second stage yet, guys.
No.
Slow your roll. Let's figure out what happens. The Ravens have stated they are not going to rush this. I think they learned their lesson last year.
Right.
They're not going to rush it. So here's the deal. You have to let them get through. Guys, it's the first week.
The Ravens are making a concerted effort to...
It's the first day.
Yeah, right, exactly.
It's not like...
They obviously, they're changing the way that they're doing camp practices and all of that. They're taking all the data and limiting how much, usage these guys get. So they're hyper aware of how much availability these guys have. And they're not going to rush these guys back because they understand how crucial pieces these guys are to their success moving forward. I'm not worried about it. Yes, I know Harbaugh made a comment today that Gus Edwards is questionable for week 1. They went out and signed yet another vet back. But the reason that they're bringing that other vet back is because
bodies.
They still have to have bodies. They still have to go through their practices. Their offensive line still got to get practice. Their quarterbacks, everybody's still got to have practice. They have to have bodies there to be able to do it. And if you put them on the PUP list, that opens up a roster spot for somebody to come in and fill that depth. That's all that is.
Hashtag pump the brakes.
Exactly. Go ahead, James.
Yeah, real quick, TJ just put up a question, and you would love to answer this. If Lamar wants to be the highest paid in the NFL right now, do you let him or walk?
No. I 100% I'm paying him because what is the other option? That's my question. Is he worth being paid the highest amount of any NFL quarterback in the league? Probably not, but what is your other option?
That's what Arizona just answered.
In a year from now, in 2 years from now, just like when Joe Flacco was paid all that money and he was a top paid quarterback, he was quickly down to the bottom tier of the middle of the pack, maybe like after the top 10 in a year or two, because that's just how these contracts work. And if it means that he gets $500 more than Aaron Rodgers and now he's the top paid quarterback and that's what it takes to get the deal done, then you do it.
Got no problem.
I hate it, but you do it.
Got no problem with him being the top player paid today. And here's why. Because to Fred's point, tomorrow somebody else could get more.
Exactly.
At the end of the season, if we find out next year's salary cap, which is anticipated to go up again, what do you think that's going to do to guys whose contracts might be coming up? It means they're going to go up. Their numbers are going to go up. So you're talking about these situations, and right now, yeah, I got no problem because I guarantee you in 1 to 2 years, he might not be the highest paid anymore. It might be Joe Burrow.
Right.
Right.
Well, they're already talking about working on an extension for him.
Right. But that's my point is he could be the highest paid now, and I don't have a problem with it because we all understand the business. It's going to change, tomorrow in a sense.
To your point about Burrow, the Bengals are smart. If they're looking at working out an extension for him now, being a few years ahead of the game, that's how you avoid being at $60 million a year, $70 million a year when his contract actually comes up. Is you pay him early, so that way he gets the money now, but you save in the long run.
Or it winding up being a longer term contract that comes and bites you in the ass later in the contract.
Potentially. Go ahead.
All right, I got one for you, Fred and Scott. So Lamar gets his highest paid contract. What happens in 2 years? He's like, I want to get my contract redone.
I mean,
we see what he's done.
Could that be a potential problem? It could. I mean, any quarterback that you sign, any player that you sign could potentially do that. Have we ever seen that from Lamar yet? No. Have we seen him do anything that's kind of against the grain in a negative way? Not really.
No, but I'm just tired of all these, and this is any sport. They sign these contracts, they want to get paid, and then, like you said, the next person's going to get paid even more.
Right.
Well, I'm worth more. Like, you don't see the owner saying, hey, you had a shitty year, cut me a check for $50 million. I wish some of these owners would come out and say this, but it's getting ridiculous in basketball.
I agree.
It's getting ridiculous in football now. You sign these deals.
You sign the contract. Honor your contract.
I just get tired. Oh, well, I'm better corner than him. Well, he's getting paid now. I'm just tired of that.
I agree with you,
dude.
too. The wide receivers. The only thing I can sit there and say to you, like, it hasn't really happened with quarterbacks yet. I mean, that you do restructures or you move your money around. Like, that obviously happens. But you don't really see especially like the wide receiver market.
That's where it's bad.
Like, Christian Kirk goes and signs with Jacksonville. I mean, it's their money, their prerogative to do what he does. And now all of a sudden, Adams wants this money, and Hill wants this money, and Brown wants this money, and Debo wants this money, or don't call me a running back and don't make me run. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, well, you're in the middle of a contract. Like, no.
Well,
and you start talking about wide receivers, and this brings up a whole other topic, and we could talk about this later. But it gets me to thinking, like, you got guys like Christian Kirk, right? Like you just mentioned, goes inside this big deal with Jacksonville. But then if you look at the tight end position, you look at Travis Kelce, you look at Mark Andrews, you mean these guys aren't worth
I see that today too. Someone
Christian Kirk kind of money? Like, so the balance in these contracts is all out of whack, and I just don't see it getting better anytime soon.
Again, the business is cyclical because you get this mindset where pay me for what I've done, and then we go through the pay me through what I've done, and we pay all those guys, and then we get the guys to go, pay me for what I'm gonna do.
Right.
It's this double-edged sword, and I can't not ask. Is there like a teleportation spot over there? Because you seem to have grown a body next to you.
Welcome back, Ryan.
What's up,
Good
buddy?
to see you, man.
You guys still do sports around here, or is it like a cooking show?
Yeah, right.
It's been a while.
Ryan heard we're talking Terps. He's like, oh, I'll be there.
Welcome back, buddy.
Oh, thank you.
So
He looks the same, people.
Any comments from you on anything we've talked about?
I mean, I think the Lamar contract is just going to center of everything. I think that they don't want another repeat of a Stanley. We signed him and he's hurt tomorrow.
Nobody does, though.
So that's I know, but it's just, I feel like there's a lot of parallel that where I can see, like you're saying, I'm not announcing this contract we have signed in case he gets hurt in practice. Do you know what I mean? That kind of thing. I can see the reality of that scenario.
If the contract is signed, it's signed. It doesn't matter.
I know it doesn't matter. they don't want the PR hit.
Well, that's why I'm saying they're waiting.
They're going to find out one way or the other.
I said they're going to wait to sign because here's the deal. Because NFL is a publicly traded company, the second that's why partially why contracts are out there, because the NFL is a publicly traded company, so the information is more readily available because they have to start saying, okay, these teams have to say, all right, well, we're going to be paying this much. We need our revenue cut, or we need this, or we need that. So that's how people find out and start linking everything together, which is why I said I could see them having it worked out up here together, and then they're going to put it down here when they're both ready.
Yeah. Listen, this is a story that's not going to go away until it goes away, until the contract happens. So we're going to continue to talk about this week on and week out. But the Ravens did make a couple of moves I want to go over real quick before we move on. Cornerback Amon Marshall was waived over the weekend. Ooh. Guy that was a former fourth-round draft pick, just never ended up seeing the field. The Ravens thought highly of this kid, at least long enough to hold on to him since 2019, despite all of these injuries.
Yeah, but I was going to say, that's the thing. He's struggled to stay on the field, so to me, it's not really much of a surprise.
No, and again, you're getting a lot of health back at cornerback. You brought in some extra depth pieces, so he kind of became expendable. And again, the Ravens were super tight up against the cap, so any kind of money you can save here, there, or the other, you have to do that. But this is now the sixth player, the 2019 draft class that is now gone. 2019 wasn't that long ago. But the only ones you have left, Ben Powers and Justice Hill, both are guys that potentially might not be with the team. Exactly. Both are on the bubble for making the roster this year. We'll see what happens. But 2019 draft class, not looking good.
I mean, the Justice Hill experiment, I think we've all kind of said it. It's gone and passed.
Nobody thought that was going to go poorly.
Yeah. Well, again, we don't know what the state of the running back room is. We don't really know what the health is for these guys. So Justice Hill might hang on for a little bit longer, especially he does bring the value in special teams, and we all know Harbaugh loves that.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying his days are 100% done, but we'll see.
That's one of those PTSD triggering names.
Yeah, I know, right? They did add more depth at tackle, which obviously was a problem last year, expecting to have Ronnie Stanley back and then trading Orlando Brown Jr. So tackle was a sore spot. But they bring back David Sharp. Played most of the season on the practice squad last year, but made most of the snaps when he did get a little bit of time. Does this mean you think we could see a name potentially leave? Because when you look at the depth at tackle right now, if you get a healthy Ronnie Stanley back, you got him. You added Morgan Moses in the free agency to play right tackle. They brought back veteran Juwan James, who they got from Denver, was hurt last year, but they're speaking pretty highly of him. They drafted Daniel Falele out of Minnesota. Now Sharp. Patrick McCarry, Tyree Phillips, they more than likely going to play guard, but they can play tackle. So you got a lot of options. You got a lot of depth there. Do you think there's a name that might leave?
If I'm going to point out a name that would leave, it would be a competition between Sharp and Phillips. Between the two of them. Because I look at that and I say, you're invested in Ronnie Stanley. You invested in Morgan Moses. You know Juwan James. You did that deal knowing that you wanted him back because you were going to expect him to be an impact. Falele, you drafted him because you expect him to be an impact player in just a year or two.
He's 400 pounds. He's massive.
He's a big boy.
Not getting rid of him.
So that leaves you with one guy that you just brought in, the guy that's your most versatile on the line in McCarry, and then you've got Tyree Phillips, who at tackle has struggled, and at times he did okay at guard, but at times he struggled at guard too. So if you're asking me if one of these guys is going to go, I think depth is important on this line, especially because I think if one of these guys goes down, you're going to need that depth. But if you're telling me, hey, we only got a spot for so many guys and we got to lose one, to me at this point, it's a competition between Sharp and Phillips of how they look in this preseason.
If I had to give you a name that I think might leave out of this group, it's probably going to be Juwan James. The only reason I say that is because, they brought him over because it was extreme value last year. There was like no risk with it. They knew he wasn't going to play last year, but they thought, well, if he can develop and be a right tackle next year and we can get him on the cheap, then cool, it makes sense for us to do it. But you went out and brought in a Morgan Moses, so now he is your right tackle. If Ronnie Stanley is healthy at left tackle, Juwan James becomes expendable, and he saves the most money on the cap. Again, it's going to come down
Fair
to,
enough.
I think, dollars and cents, and I think cap impact-wise, he has the biggest impact.
Fair enough. I didn't look at it from that. I was looking at it if Juwan James coming back off an injury, right? Like that's one of the things that
he hasn't played football in a long time,
right? You're hoping that he's going to provide you that depth and provide you, if so, maybe it's a rotation with him and Moses, right? Moses is getting up there in age, quote unquote, for a right tackle. So maybe that is a situation where these guys are splitting snaps 70-30, something like that. That we could see that potential, which is why I wouldn't have gone that route, but I see your perspective that if they needed cap space, 100% I agree. Juwan James is the way to go. The rest of these guys don't necessarily make sense. But to me,
Phillips, I just don't see him going because of the versatility. This is a guy that can play inside. He can play outside. He looks better inside to me.
But even though he's kind of been almost seemingly less than serviceable,
I don't think he's been less than serviceable. I think he's been good on the inside. It's just they knew when they drafted him he was a bit of a raw prospect.
So if you put Phillips or McCarry out there, you would take Phillips?
I'm keeping McCarry and I'm keeping Phillips. Okay. I'm saying if we're letting one go of this group, it's Juwan James.
Okay.
That's just my opinion.
All right. Fair enough. One thing I did want to note on was an interesting piece that came out this past week. I'm excited to see how it works out as the Ravens add Rod Woodson to the broadcast booth with Jerry Sandusky. He's gonna be their player analyst, doing the play-by-play analyst for the radio show. So I'm really intrigued to see how this goes. He's usually a fairly well-spoken guy, so I think he's gonna bring a lot to the table. And I want to see the dynamic of him and Jerry. The one thing that I saw from Jerry was he's like super excited to work with him.
I'm interested to see the reaction of Steeler Nation on this, because you got to remember Rod Woodson played 90% of his career with the Steelers, and he's beloved in Pittsburgh. He played a couple years here, and he won a Super Bowl here. I get that. But to be here as an analyst, as a broadcaster, is kind of interesting. So
maybe it tells you a lot about how things are going up in Pittsburgh.
I plead
Pittsburgh for not ever bringing him in for something.
I plead the fifth on this one because I've been at a lot of Memorial Day pool parties with Rod Woodson and seen a lot of things that make me think joining back into the Ravens is a very interesting venture.
All right.
All right, James, it's time for a social media shout out. Who's been in the chat room? Who's chatting it up?
Let's ride.
Let's ride.
Let's ride. All right, so tonight, John Googs, first one in the room.
John Googs. Googs heard that there was Terps talking. He's like, fuck that, I'm tuning in. I'm first.
And Ahmed says I'm 2, and then TJ Roberts said I'm 3. Kaylee comment, Steve Moore, Don C, Stephanie, Nick Short, and Dave Mitzler. So we have a couple short today, I guess, because they're used to the Wednesday night that we
The numbers look good. It's just not a whole lot of people chatting it up.
Sign it up, guys.
Goog's been going off, and then a lot of people are going back and forth on Raven Talk. So
Joe Carlos tells me on the pub list.
Yeah, and then Sherry was in there too.
I
forgot that. I just
Sherry.
comment on her earlier, but I didn't write down because I got too excited about seeing her in there. So,
any good comments that you wanted to bring up that you pinned?
Yeah, I pinned a couple. I think we talked to some about it.
The first one from TJ.
Yeah.
What do we got here?
So what do y'all think about Lamar's very strange videos he posted? Some Ravens fans were embarrassed with the videos. I personally didn't care, but what are y'all's thoughts on the videos?
With TikTok videos.
Yeah.
Crying out loud. That's the younger generation. That's what they fucking do.
Exactly. Yeah. He's 25 years old. Like, he's still a kid at heart. And Lamar is just kind of, he's a little bit of a softie. I don't know. It doesn't bother me at all. He's kind of a little bit immature in some sort of ways, and he's very mature in other ways. He's a kid.
Again, people need to #pump the brakes. Like, it's not this. Now, if it was the driving while TikToking like that one time, or like the jet key, like that stuff. Okay, like maybe we're kind of working up.
Yeah.
But
now we're complaining about a guy like TikToking when it's the overdub from a movie.
If they can find anything,
TikTok for next Friday, guys. If you are mad about the kid,
he found a classic movie.
Next Friday is a fucking classic.
Exactly. Anything else, James?
Adi said people are conditioned to think that wide receivers are significantly more valuable than tight ends. An above-average tight end has much value. has as much valuable, if not more, than the above average or average wide receiver.
And that's exactly what I was saying earlier. You know, you got guys, again, they're going to have to reevaluate this stuff, and you're going to see it change over the years. You're already starting to see some of these top echelon tight ends getting paid way more money than they used to, but that needs to be balanced out. If wide receivers are worth X, well, then tight ends, especially those elite level tight ends, need to be up there on that same pattern. You're talking about a guy who had over 100 catches, who had over 1,200 yards receiving, over 10 touchdowns. Like, that's why it's top tier elite level wide receiver numbers. Oh, mind you, he is also a branch of the offensive line. He does a whole lot of blocking where wide receivers don't do that for the majority teams, other than purple and black. But I think tight ends are severely undervalued.
There was one more comment I wanted to bring up before we move on, because I think she's right. Stephanie Swart says, once you're a Raven, they tend to stay. Ravens family hits different. And that's the whole thing about Rod Woodson. And I think she's right on that.
Yeah.
When you look at everybody that's come here,
Except for Bernard Pollard.
Well, yeah. Well,
Fuck that guy.
Screw him. But no, everybody that come here, they say the same thing. It's a different atmosphere. It always has been. And it harps back to that Studio 44 that we saw with Marlon talking to Steve Bisciotti, and how it's who he hires.
Right.
He hires the right people to keep a culture. He put a culture in place. He wants to keep that culture. And really, he didn't even put it in place. It was there when he took it over. He saw that it worked, and he wanted to maintain it.
Ryan, to your point, I know we've talked about this off camera a couple times. You know, the only person that I've ever heard, and I heard it directly from you, that had anything, I don't want to say negative to say, but to say that another organization did it a little bit better was Alejandro Villanueva.
Yeah, Villanueva had some, not better, just different, and he appreciated better. He just talked about how the Steelers organization was more of like a family atmosphere, like she said, the family, and that Ravens was more militaristic, and you know, this is a guy that would know what military is like. So I took it, you know, it's just all what you're used to. Like, if it works, it works. And when you're winning and you're militaristic, it's not that bad. Everyone is like understands the process. The problem is when you're in a militaristic type situation, you start losing, things can go bad real fast because I don't want to listen to the stuff you're telling me.
Right. That's a very good point.
Appreciate it, Fruit Fives.
Yeah, man. All right, fellas, it's time for some bros, bows, and O's.
Did you see Ryan get a little bit excited when he heard the transition and then realize we were going to the Orioles?
No,
I didn't.
Hey, it's almost time for Ryan to pay attention to the Orioles. we're getting there,
Yeah,
people.
no wonder he's on the couch, right? Team's now back at 500 again, 48-48 after a big win last night to kick off a 4-game series against the Rays. Win last night puts the team at 13-6 overall in the month of July, which is on pace to have the team's second best record in the month of July in 20 years. 20 years, fellas. Like, that's how good they're doing right now.
Yes.
They're
Love it.
guaranteed back-to-back winning months. First time they've done that since 2016.
6 years. 6
Yeah.
years.
It's been a long time since
It's
they've had
been a while.
back-to-back winning months. It's pretty impressive.
And prior to the
That's
race,
a big sample size, James.
Yeah.
Big sample size. 2 months.
Prior to this series, they did lose 2 of 3 in a home series versus the Yankees.
Yeah.
But here's the thing that I think people need to take away. This series wasn't horrible.
No.
They lost.
You know what's funny about this, though? It happened in the complete ass opposite way that I thought it would happen. I legit thought the Orioles might take 2 out of 3, but the one that they would lose would be Garrett Cole. It legit went the opposite way.
I totally did not think that. So, like, they lost on Friday 7-6. They did win on Saturday 6-3, and that was against Garrett Cole, right? And then they ended with a 6-0 shutout loss on Sunday. Well, let's take a look at this weekend subjectively, though. They lost the series, but they kept things comfortably close, minus 1 game.
Yeah.
And they were going against the Yankees' top of the rotation in a league coming out of the break. These guys are hot.
The best team in baseball.
They're the best team in baseball. Friday was the normal comeback style game. They just couldn't finish it.
So close.
15 men left on base was the big key to this in this game. If they get 2 of those runs, we're not having this conversation. We're talking they won 2 of 3.
Yeah, and you know the difference in this, and we kind of alluded to this before we went live today, right, is as close as this series was, I mean, obviously you had the one loss, it was 6-0, right? But as well as we did in this series, you did it really without Mountcastle's bat, without Mancini's bat, and without Hayes' bat. If you told me we were in the mix for taking 2 out of 3 against New York without contributions from those 3 guys offensively, I would have told you you're crazy. But that just goes to show how complete this team is. Starting, pitching, bullpen, and getting contributions from other guys outside of just those 3.
And here's the other deal, right? The Garrett Cole thing, right? If we would have looked at this and you told me Garrett Cole went 6 innings, 2 walks, 6 Ks, I'd have been like, shit, we lost that one.
Right.
But no, they made it count. They had 9 hits, got 4 runs off of Cole, and then cashed in on Shane Green coming out of the bullpen, who Shane Green has actually looked pretty good for the Yankees over this year. And they got 2 more off of him in the 8th, so they were able to get that win. Now, the deal is they lost the Sunday game. But who did they lose to? Nestor freaking Cortez.
Fucking guy.
This guy has
We had him for like a cup of coffee.
and he's come out of nowhere. In 2022, he's 8-3 with a 2.48 ERA. So like he's not lighting the world on fire with the sub 1, but 2.48 is respectable.
Yeah.
Right? He's had 18 games, 101 innings pitched, and 106 strikeouts. His whip is 1 even.
Yeah. This was a bounce back game for him, though. I mean, he started off the season dominant, and really over his last 3 or 4 starts, he's kind of struggled. So this was a bounce back game that he needed coming out of the All-Star break. Unfortunately, it came against the Orioles.
Guys, the guy was an all-star.
Yeah.
And he was voted in by the players, not by the fans. He voted in by the players. So it just goes to show you they really have done well this series. It wasn't a win in that Yankee series, but it was good.
Go ahead, James.
And we were also talking about who didn't show up, this and that. Well, we knew for the Yankees, you might well just call it was Aaron Judge night.
Oh, it was.
Aaron Judge weekend.
So it was the Orioles against Aaron Judge. So that's
100%. They couldn't keep in the ballpark. And this is the guy who was the one bitching about the outfield wall while he made child's play of that outfield wall. He made child's play of the park. I mean, at one point he hit one on top of
the second bullpen.
Visiting dugout up top.
Yeah,
like,
the second bullpen. He hit it up there.
right.
Yeah, it was
Do you
crazy.
think we can sign him?
No.
I'm not saying he's coming to Baltimore, but what I will say with confidence is he will not be back in a Yankee uniform next year. I will say that. But he's not coming to Baltimore.
I'll let you go over the Rays stuff.
Yeah, man, because they started off a 4-game homestand last night against the Rays on the right foot last night. Rays right now holding the second of the 3 wild card spots in the AL. We've talked about like competing. This is where you got to make it count, regardless of the playoff implications, right? James, we've all kind of talked about this, and where you're beating the powder puff teams, you're beating the teams that you should beat. There's really not a team that the Orioles should have beat going into this year. You can't even say that because they were the team that should have been beat, right? So, but to do it against your division, when you're talking about the best division in baseball, hands down, there's no argument. It is the best division in baseball. It's big, right? And this was a big test coming out of the All-Star break. You got the Yankees for 3, and now you got the Rays for 4, 7 games. So if you can come out of this on top with a 4-3 record out of this 7-game series, you're doing good things, and that's impressive against this
and that's
division.
That's
rivals.
one of the things that when you're looking at this piece with the Rays, right? We talked about us, competing and being in this situation, and I know that James doesn't agree. But you still have to look in every time that you win against a division, that's one step closer to a wild card spot because we hold 2 of the 3.
Right.
So our division holds 2 of the 3. So every time you beat somebody in the division, you're taking another step closer. We're only 3.5 games out of that wild card spot. Nobody in here thought this was going to happen.
Nope.
Ryan would have laughed his ass off if we said that the Orioles were this close at this point in the season. He probably
had no
still
idea
is.
I was going to know 5 players' names by now. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
But here's the thing. Like I said, it's not one thing, right? And it's been some of the unexpected this year that I don't think anybody in this room had any idea was going to happen. Like the bullpen. Right, last night, the star of the show, going 6-inning pitch, 4 hits, 0 runs, 0 walks, 8 Ks in 6 innings. That's impressive, but it's not just a one-night thing. If I'd have told you that beyond the halfway point this year, that our bullpen would have the 3rd lowest ERA in the majors, would you believe me?
No.
You'd have called me crazy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
3.09 ERA this season. But who are you hanging your hat on? Like, gone are the days of Zach Britton. Gone are the days of Darren O'Day. Like, there's no names out there. The only name that you would have said maybe is Dylan Tate, right? Because I understand, like, Felix Bautista is physically imposing, but he hadn't proven anything at the major league level. He had been walking guys left and right, so we didn't know what to really expect from Felix
we thought it was funny that Jose Lopez, Jorge Lopez was going to be in the bullpen, let alone, like, on the staff at all.
Exactly. I had high hopes for Jorge Lopez because I thought in a shorter role like that, in a bullpen role, he could be effective. But I never thought he would be our all-star representative. I never thought he'd be one of the best closers in the game. Like, again, it's not
dealing with everything he's dealt with his family.
Yeah.
And his son.
And there's a list of names that we could go down that you would be like, who's that? Who's that? Ryan would not know a single one of them.
Yeah,
the average
Lopez
fan
is the only name I knew in that whole list of things you just said.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. The average fan doesn't know who these guys are, and they have the third best bullpen ERA in the majors. What does that tell you? That tells you that the player development, the coaching is getting better. And hey, guys, guess what? That wall is effective, and it's helping us for the positive. Just saying.
Ish.
It is.
Ish.
It is. Hands down. Hands up, hands down.
Scott's just sad he sits in left field and everybody gets free tickets around him.
No, I say ish because how many times have the Orioles been robbed by that wall, by their own wall at this point?
Of course, it's going to hamper us in that sense, but we are not at 48 and 48 at 500 with that wall in the same spot. I'm not saying it's making a 10-game difference, but I don't believe we're 48.
Look, here's the deal: we need to relish what's happening here because the Orioles are not playing catch up. We got Mustard coming out of the bullpen. Do you see what I did there? Did you see the shirt? Nobody's paying attention.
I like it.
All right, but no.
Okay, Dad.
It's one of those.
My joke.
I know nobody likes my jokes. It's one of those things that you gotta kind of take a step back and look and say, okay, there's a lot going on, and I'm gonna skip around what we originally had here because I think it kind of leads us into, guys, we are now 6 days and 21 hours from the trade deadline. It's August 2nd. It's next Tuesday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right before we go on air.
Yep.
So we've talked a lot. You've got Trey Mancini coming out and doing an interview with Mark Viviano yesterday, basically saying, look, this series against Tampa, I'm taking it all in because he's in the mindset that this could be his last 4 games at Camden Yards as an Oriole.
Yep.
This city means a lot to him. He said all that. We've talked about the Mullins, the Lopez, the Lyles. Some people have put Mountcastle in there. I don't necessarily agree with that one. But we're 1 week away. We've given all of our opinions up to this point of like, okay, what could they do? We're not going to be able to share with everybody our last minute opinions at this point because we're going to go live right after the deadline hits. So I'm going to ask everybody in the room, give me the news headline regarding the Orioles that comes out between now and the deadline.
I think it's the news that you've been hearing going around social media. I don't think it's any secret. I think Mancini and Dylan Tate will be packaged together in a deal to the Mets because really the Mets have been the only one kind of making any noise about Mancini. And I think if you give up a bullpen arm, a guy that could go in there and help them, in long relief or short relief, it just adds value to the package that you're getting back. And Dylan Tate is expendable. He's a guy that we have a Nick Vespi who just came up and was dominant last night, right? Yeah. So if you can get more prospects with packaging him to Mancini and get a better deal back, I think it makes sense.
So you think the headline's Mancini to the Mets,
Mancini
reunites
and
with
Tate
Showalter
to the Mets, reunites with Showalter. Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right, I'll throw it over to James. James, what's your headline?
They're going to be shopping. They're going to be spending that players around.
Aaron Judge to the Orioles.
That'd be funny. No, but like I hear a lot of rumors are coming out now, and that's the best part about being where we're at because we're like a couple steps from being where we should be. Like I heard rumors like you want Luis Castillo to come here, and apparently there was a package for that.
Yeah.
And then also some talks with the Marlins are heating up because basically they said they already checked out. Everybody's available except like one guy. They said that he's untouchable. So we never know, but the Mancini and the Tate was talked about New York as well because they're like maybe 1-2 players away of completing the roster to compete.
What a change in tone.
So, like I said,
You got receipts? I got receipts.
Yeah.
there's going to be
They're not
shopping
old
going on.
receipts. They're fresh.
Yeah, they're
I've
not
got
even,
them still.
burned out yet.
They're the CVS version of receipts.
High definition. CBS.
All
I
right,
like it.
let's. So
Go ahead, Drew. What's your take? What do you
Thought
think
you were about to
happens?
steal my thunder, by the way. I think they're bringing in Pablo Lopez.
Yeah.
I think it might be a decent little haul. Maybe you got your eyes at like a main piece, like a Westberg might be going. I don't think it's going to be a Gunner or a Hall or Rodriguez, like nothing like that, because it wouldn't be the point, bringing in Pablo Lopez at that point.
Right.
But like he was alluding to, Miami is really falling off. Chisholm, their main player,
Yes.
he's out for the rest of the season. There's another main guy who's like all but out for the season, like. Really, the only, like he said, the only untouchable piece there. I mean, it's the Marlins. Everything's like pretty much touchable at that point. But it is their main ace that isn't going to go anywhere. But I think that's the big headline. I think they, like we talked about last week with Chuck Summers, they're investing.
Yeah.
I still agree with you guys with Mancini being gone. That'd be the big headline with everybody. But I think the bigger headline would be I think they're bringing in Pablo Lopez.
I like it. Ryan, I'm sure you don't have much
I
of a
have
take.
great opinion.
Oh, really? Okay.
They're going to bring in Juan Soto for cash consideration,
Jesus Christ.
which is letting them out of the Masson contract completely. And I think it might work out nicely. No, I think it's going to be opportunity missed. I think nothing will happen. It'll be all this talk for weeks, and we'll have the exact same team after the deadline. Opportunity
And to be
missed.
honest with you, I'd be okay with that because, again, I don't want to get rid of players for the sake of getting rid of players. It does you no good. But if you get the right package, like you said, or if you're going after a piece, like you said, Pablo Lopez or something like that, that not only can help you right now, but can help you years down the road, then I'm good with it. But we're not at a point right now, again, being 48-48, where we're just throwing all our chips on the table and just trying to get rid of pieces for the sake of getting rid of them.
No, and look at Ryan coming out with the great headline there.
Opportunity.
He was last. He had a lot of time to think about it.
He had time to think about it.
He had time to think about it.
I had time to think about it, and I didn't think of that. But I ironically, I actually agree with Ryan on this, is that I think the headline is going to be Orioles stay the ground or stay the course.
Stay pat.
I think they're going to stay the course. I don't think you're going to see a deal get done. I know that there's the rumors, but here's the deal. You're not going to get rid of Trey Mancini for nothing. And the problem is the Mets. The Mets are in win right now mode. I'll be honest. I'd have to look at their prospects. I don't know where they stand on the list. I don't know who they'd have that I would be, humming and hawing for, going, yeah, let's get this guy. Let's get this guy. So I don't know what's there. I don't think there's that big splash trade because it doesn't, for this season, it doesn't seem like the Mike Elias thing to do right now, especially because you're in a place that you didn't think you would be. And you're going to have to give up a major piece either for the now or the future, and you got to weigh it now.
Right.
If you're going to sell, if you're going to be a seller, okay, you're giving up something for the now. If you're going to be a buyer, you're giving up something for the future, which is why I think it comes back to that investment statement. I think the O's stay pat, they stay the course, and maybe there is an opportunity missed, but I don't see them. I don't see them actually getting any deals done.
I got a feeling that's going to be a
Show title.
A show title in the next 2 weeks. Opportunity missed.
Yeah, if nothing happens, that's definitely the fucking
That will be the title next
That's
week.
definitely the show title.
Go ahead, James.
Scott, you got to come out of Cloud 9 over here, dude. Get him reality check. People are getting traded, dude.
We'll see. Again,
I
I just
think-
don't think they're going to trade him for the sake of trading him.
I think Mancini's gone. I think when he makes comments to Viviano like that, a player like that,
Enjoy my 4 days.
you're already talking to him like, look, we're talking to the Mets right now, and now we're throwing in this to to better. Like I think he already know. Like I think it's been that thing where they've already come to him like, look, we've been talking to the Mets. That's the team. If it's nobody else, you're here. But if things break down with the Mets, you're here. But I think he already knows like you're getting. Look, it's 80% chance you're getting dealt to the
He
Mets.
can always come back next year.
Is he on his last year of his contract?
It's that one.
Yeah,
It's
the arbitration.
He's got arbitration.
Stuff.
He's arbitration eligible again next year.
One
so.
more year, yeah. We'll see, man. I don't think to Joe's credit, right? I think the Mets just picked up another first baseman in a deal yesterday, right? So I think part of the appeal to Trey Mancini was going there as a DH, right, and the ability to play first base, kind of both of them. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. I just don't think they're going to trade it just to trade it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens and how they handle it. One last thing I did want to hit on before we finish out with the Orioles and move over to the Terps is got to talk about the draft signings that have happened thus far. Obviously, for the Orioles going out, they get their number 1 pick. All eyes were on Jackson Holliday, especially after pick number 2 in Drew Jones. His agent was confirmed to be Scott Boras. They get their signing with the Diamondbacks done, get their deal worked out for $8.1894 million. That broke the record for money to a high school player. So the eyes all turned to Elias.
Looked
and the Orioles.
real good until today.
We'll get into that in a second. But now, how about from Elias going, well, how about we just give you 8.19 instead of 8.18?
We're going to give you a cool $600
more. They reach deep in them pockets.
Yeah.
But
You want to be the highest? Here you go.
Yeah, exactly.
$600.
Here you go. But look, the Orioles, they made it work. They looked at everything and said, look, we could have gone Drew. We went you. We think you're a bigger impact for our team than he is. Both these kids are going to be impact players or have the ability to be impact players. So the real thing here is the Orioles, not only do they do that, his value was 8.8. So you save yourself $700,000, which then turns around and you look at a guy like Judd Faison, who came out of Florida. He gets paid $600. You just paid for him with your savings on Jackson Holliday.
Right. Exactly.
You don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, we're starting to see the names fly in. There were a bunch of names coming in right before we went live today of guys signing their contracts, including the 7-footer. The banana hammocks or whatever the fuck they were.
Super excited.
Yeah.
No, I think
that guy's gonna be able to reach out and touch the
I
battery.
love freak shows. I love it.
It's gonna be interesting for sure as things go on. And you alluded to it. So before the show, we talked about it because it happened. Drew Jones today.
Yes, how much better are you feeling out there, Birdland, about the Jackson Holliday now, right?
Like
Drew
my
Jones
12-year-old.
going to be done in his first batting practice session. Injures his shoulder. Sounds like he's done for the year.
Yeah.
And that's being optimistic. Like, it could be worse than that. After just inking an $8-something million contract and was this close to being an Oriole.
That's exactly what I would do if I signed an $8 million contract.
Take the lazy way out.
I'm out. Not a single pitch. I'm taking $8 million and sitting home.
Murray did it, right?
Yeah.
Murray,
Davis did it
drafted
like
by
a hard
Oakland.
way.
He went on to football anyway.
Right, exactly. All right, fellas. So we're going to talk some Terps. It's been a while.
I can't hit the show and tell button because he's in the wrong damn place.
That's
this is
fine.
weird.
Okay,
That's
I'm
fine,
going to go
man.
pee, but it's not because of Shell-a-Tell, I swear to God. I've been trying a lot.
Exciting around College Park.
It has been a minute, man, but I figured it was time. We're getting close to the 2022 season kicking off. We're less than 40 days away now. Saturday, September 3rd, 12 p.m. at Capital One Field. So I figured we'd do a little bit of a season preview. Ryan and I just released today our latest episode of Shell and Tell podcast. So if you want a little bit more in depth on quarterbacks, running backs,
Wait,
and
we're
the
not
tight
going an
end
hour and
group.
14 minutes right now? We're not doing that?
No, we're not doing a full hour and 14 minutes. If you want a little bit more in depth, make sure you check out the Shell and Tell episode that we just posted. We did that on YouTube and all your major podcast platforms as well. But this team's ready, man. They're ready to build off the big Pinstripe Bowl win last year over Virginia Tech. Locke said this season started in New York for that bowl game in March, and he wasn't wrong, man. It's just been rolling ever since, and I'm excited for it.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously they had Big Ten Media Day today where you saw all the teams there. You had your 3 representatives from Maryland in Jacorian Bennett, Raheem Jarrett, and Talia, all being present along with Michael Oxley. Yes, I got all those names, Ryan. You should be impressed right now.
That's how many Orioles I know.
I'm getting there. But no, I think it was really interesting because I did watch it. I had it on in the background, and as they were coming up, I'd pause it, or if I was on a call or something and trying to listen. And you really heard that same sentiment, right? That they really did, as a team, feel that the tone changed at that Pinstripe Bowl.
Yeah.
Not only just getting there, but being successful.
Yeah, and you had a lot of guys that really didn't have a whole lot of on-field time during the season, guys that were going to be a part of the future, guys that were going to be a part of 2022, get a lot of action in it. Some guys got their first touchdown, some guys got their first yardage. It just depends, but it was a good sample size. It was a good test, I guess, going into for this season.
Yeah, and you heard these guys. I thought it was interesting. One of the last questions they asked was, what does a successful season for them look like this year? And it was
getting lectured.
It was the canned answer, but yes, I thought the same thing.
Rack's gonna get talked to.
But it was the canned answer of it's got to be a Big Ten championship.
Well, I'll give you my response to that in a little bit, and I'll let Ryan kind of piggyback off of that as well. But man, I figured we'd talk a little bit about, you mentioned him, Talia.
Yeah, I mean, the guy, you can see it. I will say, in watching it,
because this is a guy that you were ready to bench after the first game you watched him.
He's also, I noticed, and maybe it's just because it was a national media thing, and I have to go back and see how he was last year. He seemed really quiet this year, which calm and quiet, right? Composed.
Yeah, he's not a very vocal guy.
No,
he's a Heisman Trophy.
That's the thing, right?
So far.
He is the unquestioned leader of this team, and it's just interesting to see that. Yes, we've heard it. We've seen that he can lead this team on the field. Off the field, I was a little surprised to see how quiet he was, and that
I think that's a family thing because his brother's the same way,
and it very well could be. But I thought it was interesting, so I kind of wanted to get your take. Is he ready to take his game to the next level? Do you guys see him being able, I give him crap. I gave him crap. I ate my words. I ate crow last year. 100%, I'll say it. Mm-hmm. I want to see him continue if this is going to continue and he's going to be successful at each level. So do you think he's ready to make that leap?
I absolutely do. I mean, the bar is high. Because, when you look at...
he set every record.
When you look at everything he did last year, single-season passing yards, 3,860, 10th in NCAA, the most Terp for a Terp ever. Single-season completions, 328, Terp record. Single-season completion percentage, 69.2. Career completion percentage, 67.6. Both Terp records.
Right.
Single season touchdowns, 26, tied with Scott Milanovic back in 1993 for a Terps record. Single season 300-yard passing games, 7, a Terp record, right? He set the bar really high. I know the one knock on him, if you just look at, again, the box stats of what he did last year, what are the interceptions, right? He threw 11 interceptions, and Ryan and I talked about this on the podcast yesterday. But if you dive a little bit deeper into that, right, 11 of those, the 11 interceptions, 7 of those were in 2 games. 5 of them were against Iowa, which was an absolute shit show of a game. It's when Dante Demas, he lost his best top flight wide receiver. It was a Friday night football game that had everybody hyped. It was the number 5 team in the country at the time. We were all super excited for it. And he loses Dante Demas early in the game. And you just saw the morale around him, around the team, just kind of went downhill a little bit after that. And he started forcing balls, right? It was the anomaly. It was the one bad mark on his season. He had 2 picks against Ohio State. It's Ohio State. Ohio State's one of the best teams in the country. There's 7 of your 11. So in all the other games, he had a total of 4 interceptions, right?
Yeah,
so
fair enough.
It wasn't as bad as it may seem.
So here's what I'm going to ask then, and Ryan, I'll pose this question to you because I know that you want to talk on Leah, but after you talk on Leah, what do you think he has to do to improve on these numbers from last season? What are the key cogs that have to happen in order for him to do that?
So first, I want to say that you watch the media day to day, and all offseason, Locks has been harping that he feels that Talia is being disrespected. He feels that Talia is not being recognized for what he was. Fred, what did I call for an hour and a half in that Iowa game? What were both of us going, what's happening here?
What are you talking about?
During the Iowa game, what were we saying? He needs to get him off the field.
Oh, yeah.
We need to why is he still out there?
Right.
This game's not winnable. You're exposing this quarterback to abuse for no reason. It's over.
Mentally, he was done.
Let the backups mop this up. There's no reason.
You had a Reese Udinsky there for a reason.
You had a Reese Udinsky. I guess that's probably what's the problem was he knew how good Reese was that he didn't want to start any craziness in case it went differently. But I just truly believe that Locks understands that he holds some responsibility for him not getting the credit for last season. That he very easily could have pulled him out after the second or third interception of that game.
Yeah.
Reasonably, and not had these, glowing or detrimental stats over his head. So I do think the reason he keeps harping on it is he feels a responsibility. But I think that Leah is going to have the easy way out this year because Leah was very, very good outside of that one game between the 20s. He can roll you down to the other 20, no problem whatsoever. And what we're seeing head and shoulders this year is that our goal line offense should be okay. We have brought back every offensive lineman to steamroll some people. We have baby bus Antoine Littleton that looks like a whole new human being. They put out pictures today where he dropped like 50 pounds.
Complete transformation.
He was already hurdling people at 270. Now he's 230, which is still huge for a running back, but he's cut at 230. We have Weston Wolf that's in the tight end room. We have all this beef that will make this red zone easy, and that was the problem. We're going to have other options instead of just him bootlegging and him forcing balls into tiny windows. That was all we had last year.
And that's you're exactly right. That's how he improves on last season is he's got all 5 of his big bodies back in front of him, right? He's got a revamped and ready to go wide receiver core that's got depth like I've never seen it. When you're
Ryan creaming his pants with Demas. I'm saying Demas is going to be ready.
They make the announcement today.
Ready week 1. I was like, what?
They make the announcement today that Dante Demas is going to be ready for week 1. That's huge. You got Rack. You got Jacob Copeland coming over from Florida, right? Who was another high recruit guy that was recruited by Loxley back in his high school days. Ja'Shawn Jones, you can't forget about him. Ty Felton, Marcus Fleming. They've got a ton of depth on top of some really good freshmen coming in with Shalik Knotts, Octavian Smith, Leon Halton, all working together under Gunter Brewer, right?
This is the deepest wide receiver room I can ever remember.
By far.
Ever.
By far. It's not even close. And you've got a leader of that group in Gunter Brewer who has taught some of the best wide receivers in NFL history. We're not talking about college guys. We're talking about Randy Moss. We're talking, some of the elite level wide receivers of all time.
And we had Torrey and Laquan Williams both playing for the Ravens. They were on the same Terps team. Like, we've had talent there.
Exactly.
But this is head and shoulders above it.
Exactly. And then you mentioned Antoine Littleton, right? He is just one piece in that running back room.
Yeah.
Challen Famatau's the senior leader group of that group. Colby McDonald, Antoine Littleton, Roman Hemby. You got a beast of a freshman coming in, and Ramon Brown.
Looks like a grown-ass man. He looks like Ezekiel Elliott.
Right. This running back group reminds me of a couple years ago when you had the rotation of Leak and McFarland and Fleet Davis, all of guys who have been in the NFL. Funk, right. All guys who have been in the NFL. I'm not saying that all these guys are going to be in the NFL, but they have that type of potential. And they all complement each other very well, right? Littleton's that thunder, right? And then you've got McDonald and you've got Homer and Hemby who can be that lightning.
All different styles of
exactly.
running game. Yeah.
So there's so many things, so many assets around Leah that are going to make him better.
The left side of that line is stupid. If we're not going for it on every 4th and 1 this year, Locks is doing something wrong. You got beef and a half out there. If you can't get 1 yard, pack it up, end the season.
Right.
Well, and I think you guys bring up a good point, right? Like the fact that you could put so many different style packages out there. You're not limited to what you can do. You can get teams on their heels. And the way to do that is you want to get them on their heels early. On the flip side, so you're talking about all the points that we want to see them put up, we think they can put up. On the flip side of that,
we might see some points scored against us.
My question is, how do they stop the points from being put up against them on this defense?
And that is the big question. I mean, because they took some big losses in the secondary, big losses at linebacker. In the secondary, they lost some guys to the NFL. Yep. They lost some guys to the transfer portal. So those are 2 big question marks, but
have options.
They've got options.
Just nothing's been real proven.
Right, exactly. So there's a lot of hope and a lot of praying
Our
that
top
things
2
come
cornerbacks
together.
are very good. I'll give them that. Our top 2 corners can handle some stuff.
But you look at safety, right? You get Bo Braid and Gavin Gibson replace the loss of Nick Cross and Jordan Mosley at safety.
It's a lot.
That's a big question mark, right? You got incoming freshman outside linebacker Ja'Shawn Barham, who hopefully can replace what we thought Chop would be as an outside linebacker. It would have been real exciting to have them both in the fold, but go fuck yourself. You're in Penn State now. Whatever it is, what it is.
Glad you don't like your decision.
Right. You did get the transfer from WVU and Vondarius Cowan to help mitigate the loss of the freshman and Brandon Jennings, right? Because he was a guy who, as a freshman, came in, stepped in, and made an immediate impact. So Cowan, another guy who had some ties to Loxley early on in his Alabama days, ended up playing at Alabama, then transferring to West Virginia. Now he's at his third college year at Maryland. He wasn't utilized to his best of ability at West Virginia, so hopefully he'll be utilized, and Lox knows his strengths here a little bit better.
And they don't call him the Godfather of the DMV just because he recruits.
Right.
Lox has a way of getting with these young men that are doing things that aren't good for themselves and getting them refocused on football and doing things.
Right.
So some of these guys that weren't successful elsewhere, especially a Jacob Copeland where his mom walks out of the commitment to Florida, didn't want him in Florida. Like, these are guys that Loxley has a way of putting under his wings and getting things done. And, like, bringing them to, I was where you were. Like,
right.
This is what I am now. Look at what I have, and you can have it too. Like, it works. The guy
Right.
has a way to communicate.
And the other question is a guy that you and I have been high on for years now, a Ruben Hippolyte. Does he take that next step? I'm not
He
saying
took a big step last year, but it wasn't what we thought he was going to be yet.
Right, exactly. So that's a question mark as well. Can Darrell Shami improve on his pressure numbers from last season before he got hurt? I know a lot of people preseason have him ranked pretty high. That would be a big get to have opposite of Barham.
Hippolyte said he wanted to be the best linebacker in Maryland history. That was what he said before he got here.
Right.
So he got big shoes to fill.
He does, for sure. They did bring in, you mentioned some of these diamonds in the rough. They did end up getting Caleb Wheatland, who was getting a whole lot of high praise as a 3-star linebacker, as a freshman coming in. A hidden gem, right? A guy who can come in like a Brandon Jennings and make an immediate impact. I'm not going to say he's going to be a starter day one, but if he's in that rotation, he's going to give you some snaps, and you'll start to see him gain more and more trust and more time as the season goes on.
A freshman we are not redshirting.
Exactly. And I'll be honest with you, you kind of mentioned it earlier with the transition and the transformation in Antoine Littleton. I think where they win on defense is in the strength and conditioning. If you went on social media today, if you're a Terps fan at all,
there's a lot of half-naked boys out there.
There's a lot of half-naked boys, but the transformation that you see...
They're men at this point, guys. Let's be a little careful with our wordings.
The transformation you see in these guys...
Not
some
just
of them,
the tattoos.
Right. Some of them in 6 months, some of them in a year. You know, you're seeing that the investment that they put in with this new facility is paying off in a big way. And I think you can turn some of these project players, some of these lower rated star players into better players physically. It's going to translate on the field.
It's interesting that you kind of said that it's a culture, right?
Yeah.
And Jacorian Bennett alluded to that today when he was talking. They asked him, they talked about his history, right? The fact that you were at this junior college, right? And you never got any top tier or top tier schools that were trying to recruit you.
Right.
You went to junior college. Now you're here in the Big Ten. You're becoming an impact player. What are you learning while you're here? And he basically said, like, I'm learning. This is a job. I got to put in the work. And I see guys like Raheem Jarrett and Leah put in the work, and it makes me want to go in and up my game better. So it's a culture. It is a culture that they've created, and it really is working. And I think this is, it's a tough conference. It's a tough division. It's one of the toughest in college football. So, teams are obviously going to score. Can we outscore everybody?
That's how they're going to have to win, because, listen, this defense, I think it's got some promise, but there are a bunch of question marks, right? So a lot is going to ride on the shoulders of the offense. Can they be effective? Can they outscore some of these teams?
Keep them in the games.
And it's who are you talking about? Yeah, are we going to stop Ohio State? No. Like, nobody's stopping Ohio State. You have to win exactly like we could have won, with our first game. In overtime, the last person with the ball in their hands. My biggest question on the defense is, was Greg Rose an apparition? Or was he for real?
I believe in him.
He came from literally nowhere in the middle of that Illinois game.
The rose that grew from the crack.
Yeah, single-handedly win. I hope not crack. Single-handedly win a game with 2 sacks, basically.
He grew from the crack in the shell. How about that?
Dominated in the pinstripe bowl with his touchdown, the scoop and score. Like, if that guy was actually as good as he showed last year and decided to come back for a 5th year of college football, that's a man that could literally disrupt everything and make all your people that are just kind of covering spots better.
Yeah.
All right.
That defensive line is legit. They've got a lot of young guys, too, that were freshmen last year that saw a little bit of
They're
time.
the 4 stars that stuck around.
They're going to make some big impacts. Tommy King-Bisote, Zion Shockley, Taze Johnson. Like, they're going to make some impact.
Hang on. Drew has a question during the Terps segment.
Go ahead,
And
Drew.
he'll like this. It's going to be a good one.
All right.
You know, like the best thing that they did in this offseason? They got rid of that special team coordinator.
Yes.
It did do that.
Took them a little longer than expected.
Hey,
but yes.
I pay a fucking attention to the goddamn Terps, all right?
Well,
I
it took
know
him a
that
little
was
longer
problem.
because look at that game again. Look at the pinstripe
I
bowl.
know.
We got rid of the defensive coordinator before the Rutgers game, and the Rutgers game and the Pinstripe Bowl went very well. We got rid of the special teams coordinator, which was terrible all the way until the Pinstripe Bowl. So,
Which is why it took so long. That's what I'm saying.
he had one good game. They were like, we'll just keep him. He's fine.
All right, so I talked about it earlier that they asked these guys during media day.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pose it to the two of you. 2022 is a pivotal season for the Terps. Agreed?
Yeah.
So my question,
Every year is, but yes.
I know that. How do you define success in 2022 for the Maryland Terps football team?
All right, so I kind of broke this down. I wasn't going to dive this deep into it on here. I was going to do it on a Shell and Tell, but I'll copy and paste in the Shell and Tell as well. So I'm going to allow you to kind of gauge where I see this thing shaking out and see if I'm over optimistic, if I'm right where you are, or if I'm under expectations, right? Because when you look at this team, obviously finished 7-6 last year, including their bowl win. I broke this I guess, growth and this schedule down into 4 groups, right? Have to win, should win, could win, won't win. Okay?
Ohio State is your only one.
So hold on. Have to win first 3 games of the year. Buffalo, Charlotte, SMU. Those are 3 games you should start the year 3-0.
Charlotte beat Duke.
Those are 3 games you should start the year 3-0, hands
You're
down.
the football fan, and you just referenced Charlotte beating Duke as an
I just wanted
argument.
to say
Really?
Duke lost on a Maryland podcast.
Next group should win. Indiana, Northwestern, Rutgers. Those are your 3 Big Ten should wins. So if you win your 3 games in the beginning of the year and you win your 3 should win games into the Big Ten, you're bowling. You're at 6 total wins just in those games. So you're right at what you were last year with just those 6 games alone. Could win. None of these teams scare me, and I think that we have the potential to beat them. Michigan State and Purdue, both at home.
Okay.
Winnable games. Wisconsin, Penn State, both road games. Tough, but winnable. You know, a lot of people are going to say, no way does Maryland go into Penn State with those fans, the whiteout. There's no way they beat Penn State, and I'm sure that's what he's saying over there. Sean Clifford's fucking terrible.
He's got big old smart.
And we've heard this.
One wide receiver beat us last year, and he's on the Commanders.
Yes. I don't buy into Penn State. I think that atmosphere is going to make it a challenge, obviously, but it's potential
Diggs
that
already
they
did.
could win, right? Won't win. Ohio State and Michigan. I'm only saying Michigan, Ryan, because I'm hoping the reverse jinx
this
of us.
motherfucker.
I'm hoping the reverse jinx of us being there.
I
Well,
spent
then
a
we'll
lot
win.
of money to go to Michigan.
I'm hoping we win. But here's the way I look at this, right? So you've got 6 wins between have to win and should win, right? So you're already bowling with that. If you win all of them and you pick 2 games out of the remaining games, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You win 2 out of those 6. That's 8 wins before you get to a bowl game. So you have a potential for a 9-win season if you're counting the bowl win. For me, that's a very successful year. And it leaves me excited for the future.
All right, so Ryan, we're going to throw it to you.
So I actually like his tiers, except for I switch Michigan or Wisconsin on the road and Michigan on the road because I think that Michigan was really good last year, but they had 2 top 10 defensive ends that disappeared and a bunch more talent that disappeared.
And they lost their defensive coordinator.
Joe did say that he thought Michigan got lucky
And
last year.
Jim Harbaugh is always a fucking problem child. I mean, I saw today he was talking about abortion, like that his family will raise all of his. If anyone's just stuck in a the child they don't want with these new laws that his wife will raise their kids. Well, I really hope Jim Harbaugh has 347 kids by the end of the year. He doesn't have time for football. That'll be really helpful. But yeah, I kind of think Michigan is more winnable than Wisconsin on the road. Wisconsin still takes football real seriously. It's going to be just as intense as a Michigan atmosphere, just as intense as a Penn State atmosphere. The Penn State-Maryland rivalry in Maryland's head is kind of like that Duke-Maryland rivalry where, like, Maryland's taking it more seriously than Penn State, and that's what evens that out for me. So
and I think the loss of Chop is going to be a little bit of a storyline, too.
So I like your tiers. I just switch Wisconsin and Michigan. But I have us at a 7 regular season wins with an 8 in the bowl is kind of where my head's at with a successful season. What I love that Rack today was quoted as saying 10 wins has to be the next step. I think he's going to get lectured on that, but I like his optimism. I know that last year, Anthony Pecorella, off the record, said, I can sit here and tell you guys 10 wins, but I don't think Coach would like it very much. Well, Rack just did a Big Ten Media Day.
Right.
So here we are this year that somebody's doing that. So I think that 7 wins in the regular season will get us to a bowl that we can win because we're playing a non-Big Ten team in a very similar 7-win situation. And 8 wins in the regular season, again, puts us where we would probably end up getting close or losing a bowl game. So I think we're going to be right at that 8-win mark at the end of the year.
I get what you're saying. You're saying 7 wins is where you picture them being. But the question is, what do you deem successful? Is 7 wins, 1 game more than last year, deemed successful, bearing they've got all these new weapons and health and everything's back in the fold?
You're saying
no, I truly do. So 8 wins is the... including the bowl.
So you're on par with
8 wins including the bowl
okay.
is successful because that's actually 1 more game than last year.
Right.
If you win 7 regular season games and shit the bed in the bowl, it's not really an improvement. So 8 total, whether that's 8 in the regular season and a close bowl game or whether it's 7 and a win, either one's good. I don't want you getting blown out on national TV in a bowl game no matter what you do. That's never good for a program. So that's where I'm at.
Okay.
How do you feel?
I mean, I don't disagree with you guys. I think you have to play success. The one thing I think you've got to be careful with is saying that just 1 or 2 games, when you're playing up, that this is the best wide receiving core that we've ever seen. Mm-hmm. This is the offensive line should be dominant. Mm-hmm. The defense we've gained some pieces, we've lost some pieces. We should be able to come out better than we did last year. It's playing it up a lot, I'll be honest with you.
Well, this team in the ACC wins 11 games.
Yeah, easily.
But you're not...
That's what I'm saying is the best we've ever had still can mean we're going to get 8 wins because we've had plenty of 10-win seasons in the ACC. So it's the best.
How much better are they in the Big Ten West?
Yeah,
I get it.
A lot better. And
exactly.
Mike Moxley is a proponent of getting rid of these divisions, and it will happen soon.
Yeah.
So that is the next step of Maryland getting back into those 10-win worlds is when we get rid of these divisions.
I don't hate what you guys are saying. I think for me, right, you want to be able to say that this team is taking things to the next level, right? You guys want to be that top tier contender in the Big Ten. You want to be talked about in that same breath because if you get to that point, the recruiting almost starts to come a little bit more naturally. That all the, Locks talked about it today. They talked about, well, what would it take to get to recruiting more so to the West Coast? And he said, we're going to focus on what we got here. But if our success leads us to be able to get some of these big names that are out West, and these, if we need a quarterback and I need to go out West to get it, I'll go do that, but I'm not going to go actively do it. Oh. So what I get out of all that is, if they can have success with the guys around him, the recruiting will start to naturally.
You have
influx.
to beat 2 of them.
That's where I was going.
You have to beat 2 of them.
I actually thought you have to beat, of the ones that you listed, of your buckets, of the could wins and the won't wins, Michigan State, Purdue, Wisconsin, Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan. I think a successful season, you beat 2 of them.
That's exactly what I said.
But I think to make the big leap that they need to make as a program is 3. When you can
is not lose by 21 points.
I
That's
think,
what you have to
or
do.
keep it close. That's fine.
Yeah.
I'm fine with
Ever.
I think setting that bar at 9 wins before a bowl is lofty expectations to jump from last year to this year. I just think, listen, do I think we could potentially win 9 games?
Yeah.
Yes, we
I'll be
could
really
potentially
excited.
win. I would be super excited. But setting that bar as the expectation from last year to this year, I think is too large of a jump. Football is very different than like baseball or basketball where there's multiple games, right? One win difference accounts for so much. I mean, again, going just from a 5-win team to a 6-win team gets you bowling, right? Get you
Bama
back
has
talking.
10-win years.
Right, exactly. I never believe that Maryland will be a blue blood football team, but if they can get to a point where they're winning 9 and 10 games consistently with the occasional 5-star recruit that comes in and puts us over the top and puts us up there with the Ohio States and the Michigans on a year-to-year basis, that would be great. But to have that happen in this one season, that one big jump is a huge jump, and it's a huge ask.
And I get that. My whole point in saying that is we really want to see this school jump to the next to be in those same breaths, right? And in order to do that, you've got to do something big. And the something big is you have to not, like, if you don't win those games against those teams, but to Ryan's point, if they're close games, if they're hard-fought games, lost by 1 score and not some of these blowouts that we've seen the program have in the past, now I think
got a little bit better last year.
It did, but you still had some games that it was... Whoa, what the hell?
Strength and conditioning made it a lot better this year because last year our scores at the beginning of the fourth quarter looked an awful lot better than the end of the fourth quarter.
Right.
So hopefully all this work they just put in will slow that down.
Part of our losses last year were 100% on special teams as well.
I think you have to beat some of those top tier teams, and you have to do it, or you have to
It's fine.
compete
We're beating
against
Michigan. It's no big deal. We'll be there. It's gonna be great.
No rules. No boundaries. 2 topics. 30 seconds each. It's time for the 2-minute warning.
All right, fellas, it's time for the 2-minute warning. Drew's asking the questions tonight. I got a feeling this is going to be entertaining. All right, Drew, what do you got?
Football training camps are underway. All the main players coming in. Packers camp today. Good old Aaron Rodgers decided to come in literally dressed as Nicolas Cage from one of my favorite movies of all time, Con Air.
If you haven't seen it yet, there you go.
There you go.
If you haven't seen it yet, come on, man.
That's beautiful.
Con Air.
Beautiful.
With that said, what's your favorite Nick Cage movie of all time?
For me, I know what my wife would want me to say, which is National Treasure, which is a good movie, but I actually loved him and Travolta in Face Off. I thought that was a great movie. I thought it was really well done, and you can sit there and go, okay, I can see these guys trying to beat each other and playing off each other. I thought it was really good, so I would have to say Face Off.
You didn't go the route that I thought you'd go. The layup answer here is obviously Gone in 60 Seconds. Gone in 60 Seconds is a fucking phenomenal movie.
Oh, it is.
It's a great movie.
There's a lot of good movies. A lot of people give shit to Nicolas Cage, but actually the movie that I like the most to him, and maybe it's because I relate to it, it's Matchstick Men. Do you remember that?
yeah.
Where he was like OCD, and then he was doing all the...
He's trying to raise the daughter. He's some shithead.
I'll give an old man answer. The Rock.
Scamming. Oh, it was
Rock
great.
Singular.
It was super entertaining, but
We know what we're talking about in the after hours.
Yeah, right?
All right, so second question is, what is your favorite commercial of all time involving an athlete or multiple athletes?
All right,
Gotta
so
be Baker.
I know Fred's going nostalgia feel.
I'm testing
here.
the memory bank here.
You're going to go memory bank. You're going to go nostalgia. So I'm going to go new school. I actually really enjoy and thought it was really smart with the DirecTV, the MLB one, where they have it's Griffey, Big Papi, A-Rod out there looking like the Ghostbusters and that whole
terrible
thing.
choice.
It's the Griffey side of me that likes
That's
it.
your favorite?
I'm going new school. I didn't want to go old school. We also didn't have very much time to think this over. So I thought of the first thing that came to my head that I liked recently.
Yeah. I'm going back to when I was a kid, and I would do this because every time it would come on, I would fucking bust out laughing when I was a kid. So if you remember a certain center for the Washington Bullets back in the day, guy that stood 7'7", George Mirasan, and his 1-800-NBA dunk commercial, it was fucking fantastic. He also had a cologne commercial that was fucking great. It was back in the early 90s. I loved it.
Before we start the outro, I'll give you two guesses. Would you say who hit a go-ahead two-run home run in the bottom of the eighth? I'll give you one guess.
They hit a 2-run home run for us?
For us. Give us the lead.
Urias.
Correct.
Really?
Fucking to left field.
I figured it had to be there. He's
It's the only reason Drew's bringing it up here.
So wait, which one are we getting rid of? Urias or
Hey,
Mateo?
both are doing really good right now, all right?
My ball had a bad fielding play.
Wrong button.
Yeah, wrong button. That's okay. We're transitioning to the outro is what we're doing here.
Take us out of here.
All right, man. Appreciate you guys tuning in as always.
Oh, he hit the Scott seat, by the way, it looks like.
What's that?
Could have been there.
It was in Scott's seat.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Should have been there.
Oh, wow.
We'll be back here next Tuesday night, 7:30, as always. Appreciate you coming out, Ryan. It's been a while since you've been on the show.
Half a show's better than no show, right?
That's
We're
right.
getting there.
Showed up just in time for the
I
for the
show up
Terps
late
talk.
for work. Why not late for the show? You know?
Sounds about right. But again, as we said, we just released an episode of Shell and Tell. So if you want to hear more Terps talk, make sure you head over to there and check that out for us. If you're not following us already, I don't know what you're doing. Make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button. Turn on your notifications. That way, every time we go live, you get notified. If you're not following us on Twitter, at BirdlandBS, you can follow us at all of our Twitters around here. I'll go around the room. You can follow James at JamesBond2032. You can follow Drew at Drew27N. Follow Ryan at Terps BSbert. And you can follow Scott and I at FredBLBS and ScottBLBS. Appreciate you guys tuning in. We'll be back next Tuesday night. For myself, Scott, James, Drew, Ryan. We'll see you guys.
See ya. Last call for alcohol.
Time for the after party.
Oh, man, it was a good show.
It was.
It's been a while since we've been Terps.
It's been a while since we've had this kind of heat in this room. We have 5 bodies in here, a lot of hot air.
It's my fault.
It is, 100%.
I've been sitting
I don't
in
even
the
like
middle
sitting
of the
next to you in a
couch the last
golf
couple
cart.
weeks.
You're fucking too big and too hot. And I'm usually the hot guy.
Way too talented.
Sitting next to this guy, way too talented. I need to step my game up for sure. Speaking of golf, man, we're going to have an outing here soon.
Excited, man.
I'm excited for it. We're for any of you guys out there that are golfer fans, we're actually going up to renditions. Going to do 2 foursomes, not in a sexual way, but it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Be a lot of fun, man. It's
Be a lot of balls, a lot of
sticks.
sticks. No, I think it's going to be a lot of
You've
fun.
played renditions before. I've never played it, so I'm excited.
I've played
for
it. I don't think any of you guys have played renditions. It is an awesome course to play, and it's really cool to kind of sit there and be looking at holes that are PGA holes, right? That you can naturally play. That we're going to play them from our regular.
Scott told an accidental joke better than his real joke. Yeah. He's talking about PG holes. He's got a lot of balls, a lot of sticks. Balls and holes, Scott.
It didn't involve ketchup, mustard, and relish. That was amazing.
I told Ryan the other day, so they have the hole that's the replica of 17 at Sawgrass.
TPC Sawgrass,
That's
yeah.
right. That's all I.
I'm legit
Can we
bringing
just stay
2
on-
sleeves of
hey,
balls just for that hole because I'm not stopping until one
Yeah.
is on the fucking
Yes.
green. I don't care.
If we're not playing, if people aren't coming up on us, I just want to stay there for like 35 minutes. Just keep hitting the goddamn.
We need to Rick Shields that shit and just do a video of it.
Speaking of Rick Shields, man, I don't know if you guys saw it, but he actually did a collab with Good Golf.
Yes.
For you YouTubers out there that follow any of these guys, Rick Shields been around for years. Good's just kind of starting over the last couple years, but they've been, growing exponentially, and they finally did a collab video together. Apparently, they made like 13 or 14 videos. So I'm excited for that. If you guys
like
are fans,
Dude Perfect almost.
They're
like,
awesome.
Like they're not
Similar-
Not like
next generation.
not the trick shot part of it.
They
but
did.
Just
That's
the,
how they
They
started,
did.
though.
That's how they
well, but that's what I'm
started.
saying.
Yeah.
But they've evolved. Like that's
But
what I'm
you're
saying. Like
saying
even
it's-
Dude Perfect has evolved.
It's a collaboration between each of them, and they bounce
Yeah,
off each other
yeah.
really well. Yeah.
They all have their own individual personalities, and they're very
Yeah.
different. They are very entertaining for being a bunch of 21, 22-year-olds.
They're making
super
even
young.
more money than Dude Perfect was then, because they all split
they're-
off and had their own pages now with 6. They're like, more like Mr. Beast in that way.
Yeah.
Where like everyone involved is now just like raking in YouTube money.
Yeah, and they've all got their own individual channels
what
outside
you're
of
saying,
the
yeah.
Good, right? And they've got the whole like it's Good Labs, which is all about teaching.
Oh, there's so many
and
spin-offs of
learning.
it, yeah.
It's they're really entertaining. If you're a golf fan, if you haven't checked them out, you should.
But we're gonna go play bad golf, so it'll be fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Can't
gonna be
wait to
our
keep
YouTube.
score this time. Woo.
Man. All right, so
We gotta take some fucking GoPros or something with us to record what goes on, just so that way if anything funny happens, we have something we could pull a clip
I
from.
might be trying to convince my wife to get a drone. So
A drone.
No,
Who's
we
gonna be
ain't got time
flying the
for a
drone
fucking
around?
Drone, Scott.
the drone,
That's all
the drone
you,
that I'm
fuck
looking
that,
at,
'cause
the
it's
drone that
Ryan.
I'm looking at can fly
Ryan,
itself.
you say I'm a tech nerd and spend my money on tech way too much.
Got
This
us.
guy's got me.
Some dumb shit I just heard.
but all
Even
right,
Good tried the drone and got rid of it because the noise was too annoying.
I was thinking about bringing my work cell phone on one of those like what do you call them, the stabilizer.
I have a stabilizer that we can bring.
We're breaking the drone on like the third hole.
Yeah, 100%. Shit, it won't even make it past the first
Oh no,
one. You
it
ever
would,
flown
only,
a
it
drone?
would only be brought out at the TPC Sawgrass hole. That would be just to check it out. But no, you asked a question, so we got to go around the room. Fred and I gave our answers. Obviously, the whole Packers thing with Roger showing up dressed as Nick Cage from Con Air. So, what are each of your favorite or best Nick Cage movies? James, we'll start with you.
My mom used to torture me by watching the movie Moonstruck.
Moonstruck. So that's
Okay.
wait a minute. Your mom tortured you, but
Yeah.
that's your favorite because she tortured you into liking
I don't
it.
care for Nicolas Cage's movies.
Not even Gone in 60 Seconds. You don't like that one?
The closest one with The Rock.
Was The Rock? Okay.
But he made a lot of classics. But my mom, I'm telling you, she tortured me. Like one summer, we watched the goddamn movie like at least 30, 40 times. It
None of
was
you
awful.
guys like Ghost Rider? I thought Ghost Rider was a
Ghost
good
Rider's
movie.
awful.
That would
okay,
be-
but-
no.
Really?
wouldn't make
I thought the
sense.
first
It's all
one was good. All right, so give me a Nick Cage movie that you did like.
All right. Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I do like the Gone in 60 Seconds, but The Rock is the one I've seen most in my life. That was like one of the few VHSs we had when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I've seen it probably 400 times. I love every like how he goes in as like this meek scientist and doesn't want to be there, and by the end he's like shoving
Craig.
like poison rocks down people's throats and shit. Like just the development of the character in the movie, and it's pretty good.
All right, Drew.
Con Air is tier 1 for me. I watched
It's a good movie.
I watched that so much on like VHS, and then it was DVD. Like it comes on TV. I could watch it. I could watch it on TV when it's uncensored. I could watch it on TV when it's censored. It's like Goodfellas and Con Air. They got to be like neck and neck for the amount of views I've watched. So that's since we already mentioned that, that's a good one. Is Raising Arizona from like
That's
early in his
that's a
career. That
throwback,
was
yeah.
a really good one. That's just Con Air though. Yeah, like Con Air is my A1 when it comes to Nicolas Cage movies.
I always find it weird that
just
like
fucking love it.
people give you shit if you like Nicolas Cage. Like people give you shit if you like Nicolas
I was
Cage.
going to say it's like Nickelback.
Exactly. It's like if
It's the
Keanu
Nick
Reeves.
side
I
of
think
things.
Keanu Reeves is
I'm
another
a
one.
big fan of Keanu Reeves.
I
movies,
love
and people
Keanu
hate him.
Reeves.
Yeah, same thing.
Certain
I
movies.
think the
I
thing
wasn't a
gets to
Matrix
be-
guy though, but I like
With,
certain
like,
Matrix
him
replacements.
And Bruce
Bill and
Willis,
Ted.
people only focus on the fact that like
Replacements is terrible.
they just keep putting movies out because that's what they want to do. Bruce Willis is a little bit different case. Like now it comes to find out, like especially the last couple of years where you knew he's going to have
He was
this
having some struggles.
syndrome or whatever
Yeah.
whatever they call it, but that would affect the speech. Like maybe just trying to make the quick buck. Sometimes people thought, but like at the same time, it's like they're kind of their passion piece or whatever. I've heard like I think people were like, it's either going to be really good or it's going to be a complete joke. Was that movie that he just came talking about Nicolas Cage?
Yeah.
The movie he just came out with where he plays himself. But I've actually heard it's really good.
Plays himself.
Oh, I did see that.
The
I saw a
unbearable
trailer
weight
for it.
of. I'm fucking up the title.
I've seen it.
The unbearable weight of fame or something, but he plays himself, and then like the other main character is like this really rich like cartel guy or something like, and brings him in like wanting to be his friend and like paid him to be his friend. They become best friends anyway or something, but he plays himself. And apparently, like it was actually like you think, oh, here we go, fucking Nick Cage again, but like apparently it's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Interesting.
All right. So the other question that you posed was
unbearable weight of massive talent.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
the other question you
title.
said was favorite commercial involving athletes. So Fred and I gave ours. So let's.
You know, it's funny is when you asked it, because we literally put this question together like 2 minutes before we went live, so I didn't have a whole lot of time to think of it. The George Mirasan thing was literally the first thing that popped in my head, and it's just because I remembered it as a kid. So I couldn't really pull it much. Did you guys come up with
got
anything
one.
over the course of the show? All right. What do you got?
Two you're gonna like, but one is the MJ commercial. I want to be like Mike.
Yeah, that was a great commercial.
That
Okay.
and then Carrick, he's up.
Oh, yes. I was just doing that on the golf course when you were up on the tee. Move your cars. He's up. Close your windows. He's up.
I remember that commercial. I was like,
What about you guys? Any good sports commercials?
Oh, not so much good. I always remember it though. It was like Ovechkin's like second or third year. It was early on in his career. And he wasn't the only one. It was like him, Clint Portis, a bunch of like Washington area sports players.
Eastern Motors?
Eastern fucking Motors. Yeah, Eastern Motors. They're just listening to
They just did another commercial. It was McLaren, Gibson, and
Jesus Christ! I had no
Curtis
idea they were still
Samuel.
a
They
thing.
literally just did one the other
God.
day.
5-3 Orioles.
Yeah, 5-3-0s.
Oh, 5-3-0s. All right,
Yeah.
I like it, man.
I'm sitting here looking into one of the ones that I saw that I do remember seeing, like, and my dad talking about was the Mean Joe Green commercials, the Coke commercials. Mm-hmm. Those back in the day, that that was a big deal for him to have that commercial and for them to do that commercial.
Was the whole Bears thing a commercial, or was it just a song?
No, they did the Super Bowl Shuffle. That was a song. It wasn't a commercial.
It was a song. Okay.
It was just a
They
song
turned
put
it
out.
into how many commercials at this point?
Right.
So another good one, like, is always not even necessary. It's like so many good ones to even point out that we could go down a rabbit hole on.
Yeah.
But the This Is Sports Center commercials. Just the
Oh, yeah.
myriad
Oh,
of
yeah,
ones,
yeah.
like
So many of
like
them
the
are good.
Manning
That's
brothers
right.
was always my favorite one of those.
They're kicking
they were
him
like
in
fucking
his
with
ass.
each other. Like I like when
That was a good one.
Scott Van Pelt took LeBron James's chair. It's the fucking throne.
Yeah.
He's just chilling. Have you seen my chair? Like, oh no, LeBron. I hope you find it.
And another good one was when I forget what's his face pushes the elevator, opens up. It's got the devil for New Jersey.
It's
Devil.
the Jersey Devil.
Nope,
Yeah.
Nope. I'll get the next one.
How about Tebow and Murray on that in that car commercial for the Super Bowl? It was like
I remember that being good, but I can't.
pass or something. I can't remember.
It was those like was it Nationwide? Like had the Heisman
Allstate,
Mansion
maybe?
commercials.
Or one of those, yeah.
But it was
Yeah.
that's what that
It's just
was.
the
But it
two
was
on a
them
road trip.
driving.
It's the Heisman House, right?
Yeah,
It's the
yeah,
Heisman House, but it was them two driving. And
I remember
yeah,
it being real. I was just thinking the Tebow fan in the room. I
Yeah.
might remember exactly what it was.
He
I
just went
remember
6
it
to
being very
midnight.
good.
Yeah, you said Tebow. He went 6 to midnight.
I mean, I think everything Baker Mayfield ever did was entertaining.
Baker Mayfield
Way
is.
more
Those
than
at home
football.
commercials were good.
Yeah.
All of them.
Apparently,
I can't think of a bad one.
apparently they tried to do
He
like
wanted to do
a
one on the
moving
way
out
out.
one, but they
Browns
shot it
went
down.
I'll bet it's the Browns. 100%. There's no way
100%.
Nationwide turned that down.
Fuck
Yeah.
that. He can come to the Ravens Stadium and we can color replace the purple seats with orange. It'll be fine.
I know a guy that knows something about green screening. We can make that happen.
We'll make him the star of the Replacements 2.
God,
I guess it is
Replacements
not, 'cause
one
they
was
did
awful.
two.
Why
I
do we do
can't
two?
believe
Hey!
it.
It was terrible.
Fuck out of here.
I
One of
couldn't
the best
stand
movies
that
of all
movie.
time.
As much as I love football, like I love so many
Keanu,
football
come
movies, I
on.
could
What
not
do we
stand
need?
that
Miles
movie.
and miles of heart.
I just could not
Miles and miles
stand
of
that
heart.
movie.
Christ.
Great
All
movie.
right, guys. Well, it's been a good show. Make sure you guys tune in next week.
Looks like I'm jacked off an elephant.
We'll see you guys next week.